Chapter 1. Kai, run. In the darkness, a tearful face appeared in front of him. She stretched out her right hand, trying to touch his face. But in the next moment, she was pulled by countless tentacles that stretched out from the darkness and forcefully pulled her into the darkness again. At the last moment, when she was about to disappear into the darkness, she still said her last words to him in despair. Kai, run. Take our hope. Leave this universe with the hope of our planet. Kai. After a moment of dizziness, when the sense of reality returned to the body again, a ray of bright sunlight came into view. Of course, under this sunlight, there was also a familiar face. Short blonde hair, deep pupils, a high-nose bridge, and a frivolous and confident smile formed a typical blonde handsome man, Galen Alpha Seth. This blonde handsome man was shaking his friend's shoulder and shouting, Kai, wake up, wake up. In this excessive shaking, the man who had already woken up raised his hand and slapped away the blonde handsome man's hands, stretched and said, I'm already awake. Galen, morning. Kai, it seems that you still had the previous nightmare last night, right? The blonde handsome man leaned back and laid on the bed next to him, then turned over and looked at his roommate with interest and asked, Nightmare? Ray Minkai was stunned for a moment, then shook his head, held his forehead with his hand, and recalled, Did I have that nightmare again? Yes, I had it again. When I just came in, I heard you shouting for the princess to come, the princess to go. Galen's eyes turned, suddenly stood up from his bed, sat next to Ray Minkai, raised his hand and hugged him, and asked mysteriously, I've heard you say princess many times. I just haven't heard you say what the princess in your dream looked like. Why don't you tell me today? Kai recalled a little, but he didn't want to say what he saw in the dream. So, he changed the topic and led the topic to his roommate. Galen, you went to that noble lady's house last night again? Looking at your annoying appearance, you should have had a good night, right? Sure enough, the blonde handsome man was really flirtatious. As long as the topic of hunting women was mentioned, he would immediately abandon his previous focus and show off his so-called brilliant achievements. Oh, my best friend, have you finally awakened? Have you finally decided to float in this wonderful sea of desire with me? All right, that's right. In order to be worthy of my best friend, I decided to introduce Alubert's family's third Miss Elliot to you. My best friend, are you touched by my sincere gift? However, the words of the blonde prodigal, who had suddenly fallen into a self-satisfied state, were interrupted by a quilt. Oh, Gao Long pulled off the blanket covering his head. Just as he was about to say something, he saw his roommate, who had changed his clothes in the blink of an eye, staring blankly at the corner of the room. Kai, Ray Minkai's brows slowly wrinkled. He looked back at Galen and asked, Did you bring back the pet cats of those noble ladies? Cats? How is that possible? I didn't spend the night with Miss Linda, who likes to raise cats. Galen shook his head and asked, Do you think there is a cat in our room? Ray Minkai quickly looked at the simple room. After confirming that there were no traces of pets, he shook his head. But just now I saw a cat squatting in the corner of the room, looking at us. Hearing this, Galen suddenly laughed. It seems that you are thinking of love. Ray Minkai glanced at his roommate, who couldn't stop talking about women. He raised his hand and buttoned the last button, looked at Galen with a serious face, and said, Trainee Knight Galen Alpha Seth. What day is it today? Galen was stunned. His memory immediately surged like a tide. Not good. It's the school year summary meeting. After Galen let out a scream, he finally took action quickly. After solving all the problems with his attire, he arrived at the meeting place with Kai a moment before the end of the meeting time. Needless to say, as their night mentor, his complexion naturally wouldn't be good, especially since today was a special day. Listen, I know that in the past year, your performance is enough to take off the trainee knight hat on your head. But the knight mentor with a scar on his left took a deep breath and shouted with a serious face, Today, our holy British Empire, the 98th Emperor of the Britannia Empire, His Majesty Charles D.I. Britannia, will personally supervise the 103rd Trainee Knight School Year Summary Meeting. As soon as this news came out, it immediately caused a sensation among the Trainee Knight. Their noise didn't attract the mentor's reprimand. Instead, the mentor let the trainee knight vent their excitement for a while before he stopped them again and announced some things to pay attention to. He turned around and led the trainee knight to the venue of the school year summary meeting. Ray Minkai, who was walking in the line, suddenly felt someone poking his arm. Looking back, it turned out to be his good friend Galen. "Kai, look over there." Following Galen's gaze, Kai Fa was on the other side of the line. A group of trainee knight with blood-colored feathers on their collars were walking with their heads held high and their chests puffed out in satisfaction. Around them, there was clearly a vacuum of about half a meter separating them from the rest of the line. Anpede V said of the pureblood faction, "The mentor's announcement has obviously attracted their attention. From the looks of it, we will be targeted during the school year summary meeting." Galen lowered his voice and said, "The pureblood faction was a military faction that advocated that the bloodline of the Holy Britannia Empire was the noblest bloodline in the world, the most suitable to be the ruler of the world, and insisted that the army of the Britannia Empire could only be made up of Britannians. Ray Minkai, who was born a commoner, and Galen, who was born a low-level noble, were naturally targeted by the pureblood faction. One had to know that when Lei Minkai had just entered the Knight Academy, he had already been targeted by these so-called pure-blooded people. If it wasn't for Galen's timely help, perhaps an unavoidable conflict would have broken out, especially in the following days, when the two of them clearly expressed that they would not join the radical pure-blood faction. Being targeted had become a daily occurrence between the two of them and the pure-blood faction. It doesn't matter. Don't tell me that they don't have enough dirty tricks up their sleeves." Ray Minkai shook his head, hinting his friend not to be too nervous. After all, the following school year summary meeting would be supervised by His Majesty the Emperor himself. Under his supervision, who would dare to play tricks in the dark? Galen moved his lips. "I hope so." Not long after, they had already arrived at the venue under the guidance of the Knight Mentor. Here, His Majesty the Emperor of the Britannia Empire and many nobles have been waiting for a long time. After bringing everyone to the center of the venue, and leading everyone to give the highest knight etiquette to His Majesty the Emperor, the Knight Mentor did not waste any more words, and directly signaled the fully prepared referee to begin the summary meeting. Rumble! As the steel doors on both sides of the venue opened, humanoid weapons about 5 meters tall with long heads and carrying cockpits that looked like huge backpacks drove neatly into the center of the venue under the control of the pilots, and stopped in front of the square formation of the apprentice knight. "All of you, according to the serial number, receive the body that you will be using next." As soon as the order was given, the apprentice knight, who were eager to give it a try, immediately took action. After receiving the serial number from a mentor, they boarded their own body and began to adjust it to the state that they were most comfortable with. Glasgow. Hee. Looks like the Academy has really put in a lot of effort. Galen weighed the serial number in his hand, while looking at the group of pure blood sect who had already received the serial number. After all, His Majesty the Emperor is personally supervising. After Lei Minkai casually said this, he began to check the body that he was about to use from the outside to the inside. Glasgow. This was the war machine nightmare that Holy Britain, the Britannia Empire, meticulously built to achieve its ambition of world domination. Glasgow was the 4th generation of the body, and it was already considered an old body that was retired from the battle sequence of the Britannia Empire. However, this was only for the Britannia Empire. For other opponents on a global scale, these retired old bodies still retained enough combat power. The first round of the summary competition. Number 5, number 10, step out. There was not much time left for the rookies. After all the serial numbers and bodies were distributed, the referee asked His Majesty the Emperor, who was sitting on the viewing platform, to allow the conference to begin. Along with the rumbling sound of the machine, the academic year summary conference began. "Kai, can you hear me?" Galen's voice came from a communication device. "Yes, I can hear you." Guy retracted his gaze from the 2 Glasgow fighters and replied, "Kai, be careful. Just now I received some news. The champion of this year's summary conference will probably be given the title of Guardian Knight by His Majesty the Emperor." Although Gao Long's voice was steady, Kai could vaguely hear the excitement in his voice. "Guardian Knight? Which princess is it? Lei Mingkai was slightly surprised, but he quickly understood. After all, His Majesty the Emperor had many children. It was normal for him to recruit a guardian knight for the princess. I don't know. I heard it could be the first princess, the second princess, or even the third princess. As for which princess, even Galen, who was well informed, was not too clear. While talking, the referee's voice suddenly cut into Kai and Galen's communication channel. Number 6 Trainee Knight, number 27 Trainee Knight. During the conference, private communication is prohibited. Otherwise, you will be disqualified. Yes, very sorry. Kai and Galen responded in unison and decisively cut off the communication device. Immediately after, the referee's voice sounded in Rei Mingkai's ears again. Number 6, step out. Your next opponent is number 1. Number 1. As expected, in the serial numbers just now, Rei Mingkai saw number 1 was given to his archenemy, Ampede V, said for the Pure Blood faction. This is really a narrow road for enemies. Chapter 2. In the field, armor fragments that were damaged in the previous battle were scattered everywhere, and there were even the wreckage of airframes that were broken on the ground. Among them, there were even a few training swords and machine guns that were still loaded with training bullets. In this messy field, the two fully equipped Glasgow fighters were about 15 meters away from each other. They stood facing each other, quietly waiting for the referee's order. Cha! At this time, the communication device rang again. Rei Mingkai's eyes flashed, and he spoke first. Ampede V said, "If I were you, I wouldn't say those meaningless words before the start. In the past 2 years, I've heard those words that you've said." You. Sure enough, Lei Mingkai's interruption caused Machine Number 1, who wanted to show off his strength before the battle, to choke back his words. Machine Number 1, who was also his sworn enemy, Ampede V, said of the Pure Blood faction, was almost choked to death by his anger. Good. Very good. Very good. Rei Mingkai. Wait and see. The third princess's guardian knight is destined to be mine, Ampede V said. You, a lowly civilian who relied on His Majesty's grace to become a trainee knight, will stop here today. After Ampede V, Sade made a clamor. He hung up the communication device. Ridiculous. Rei Mingkai had heard similar conversations many times since he started reading. The final result, every time, was the other party's failure. However, in the conversation just now, Rei Mingkai keenly captured a key message. The third princess, the guardian knight. Perhaps this was the true identity of the information that Gao Long had heard. If so, the eldest son of the Sade family, Ampede V Sade, who claimed to be the backbone of the Pure Blood faction in the future and could even replace the current leader of the Pure Blood faction, Jeremiah Border Earl, to become the new leader of the Pure Blood faction, would definitely go all out to take the position of the Guardian Knight. Number 1, Number 6, get ready. Battle start. Under the referee's order, the two Glasgow fighters that chose the same weapon immediately put down the high-speed driving wheels mounted on the outside of their feet. Buzz. Amidst the roars of the high-speed driving wheels, the two Glasgows sped across the field like the wind. At the same time, both sides raised their machine guns and fired bullets at each other. Da-da-da-da. The sound of bullets whizzing by kept brushing past the two Glasgows. Then, they brushed past Glasgow's body and hit the ground. The shield wall that protected the audience seats splashed blue and green oil. Rei Mingkai's expression was calm as he calmly piloted his Glasgow to deal with the enemy's attacks. At the moment, this seemingly intense battle was nothing more than an attempt by the other party to probe the enemy's strength. However, in Guy's eyes, these actions were undoubtedly unnecessary. This was because in the past 2 years, Rei Mingkai and the pure-blooded faction had fought so many times that they were used to it. Therefore, both sides were very clear about each other's strength. In this case, Aeon Peg deliberately distanced himself and pointlessly adopted some unnecessary offensive routines to attack the Glasgow that Guy was piloting. It had to be said that the effect of this was to make the battle seem more intense and pleasing to the eye. And all this was because Ray Minkai saw the expressions of the nobles who became more and more excited because of the intensification of the battle from the surveillance cameras. Da-da-da-da-ka, ka, ka. The crisp sound of magazines being emptied rang out continuously. Ray Minkai casually pressed a button and let the Glasgow throw away the empty machine gun in its hand. While accelerating forward, he raised his hand and pulled out the training sword that was inserted into the ground in front of him. Wow! At this moment, the nobles in the audience let out an even louder exclamation. Because for the nobles, the nervousness of dodging back and forth was far less exciting than directly pulling out a sword to fight. This could be seen from the faces of the great nobles, noble ladies, and noble ladies that became more and more flushed because of the rush of blood. It was just that among this group of crazy nobles, His Majesty, who had been sitting steadily on the throne, was still calm and motionless. It was as if he was not moved by the increasingly fierce and cruel battle on the field. Bang! The sound of swords clashing against each other rang out in unison. After a brief exchange of blades, the two Glasgow once again distanced themselves from each other. Relying on the powerful mobility brought by the high-speed drive wheels, they quickly shuttled through the messy fields scattered with all kinds of wreckage, constantly wandering, looking for that moment of opportunity. They sometimes brandished their blades and rushed at each other, and sometimes they casually picked up the surrounding wreckage and threw it at the enemy to interfere. Under the crazy battle between the two Glasgow, the weapons scattered everywhere were constantly consumed, and even the wreckage could be used as weapons in their hands. Bang! Ray Minkai, who was piloting the Glasgow, raised the blade in his hand and blocked the wreckage thrown by the enemy. Then he flicked the blade down and sent the broken wreckage next to his feet flying in the direction of the enemy. At the same time, the high-speed drive wheels reversed and powerfully drove the Glasgow to quickly retreat, leaving the enemy's attack range. Suddenly, a burst of urgent alarm sounded in Ray Minkai's ears. Then, a warning window popped up on the screen that the Glasgow's left arm had a malfunction. Bang! Then, there was a violent explosion and violent vibration. Wow! At the same time, the nobles watching the battle also set off a burst of exclamation. Ray Minkai's expression became dignified. It turned out that the left arm of the Glasgow was blown off from the body due to an unknown malfunction. In the blink of an eye, the perfectly fine Glasgow lost its left arm. It was impossible to do this just by relying on the training sword. Ray Minkai, who was very familiar with the Glasgow, was very clear about this point. Unknown malfunction. Ray Minkai's eyes gradually became cold. Obviously, the other party was really unscrupulous in order to become the third princess's guardian knight. As soon as the high-speed drive wheels roared, the wind driven by the blade suddenly shrouded the Glasgow driven by Ray Minkai. Bang! 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 In the blink of an eye, the two Glasgow had waved the blades in their hands and clashed 3 times. However, this time, it was Guy's Glasgow that was defeated. Bang! Another violent explosion caused a tremor. Ray Minkai's Glasgow's left leg suddenly burst out a burst of electric sparks. The unknown malfunction reappeared. The Glasgow's movement was immediately blocked. All of a sudden, Guy was unable to smoothly control his body to perform some extremely difficult but urgently needed maneuvering and dodging actions. In desperation, Ray Minkai could only grit his teeth and control the Glasgow to meet force with force again and again. Bang! The blade in Ray Minkai's Glasgow's hand was knocked away. The door was wide open. The opportunity is here. Inferior civilian. Die. Because he had been suppressed by Ray Minkai and Goran for the past 2 years, the young noble who boasted that he was the future leader of the Pure Blood faction immediately took action. The Glasgow he was driving raised the sword in his hand, aimed at the right hand of Ray Minkai's Glasgow, and slashed down viciously. From the audience's point of view, Aeon Peg wanted to cut off the right arm of the Glasgow, thus establishing the victory of this competition. However, in fact, this was not the case. From a moment the Glasgow's left arm was blown away by an unknown malfunction until the so-called victory opportunity. It was all planned by Aeon Peg. No, it should be said that the Sade family behind him planned to become the Knight Protector of the third princess. Although this trainee knight named Ray Minkai was the most outstanding genius in the history of the Royal Knight Academy. But because he was born in the humble civilian class, most of the nobles had a hostile attitude towards him because he was a civilian and not a noble. Therefore, in this case, Aeon Peg also took advantage of the situation to target Ray Minkai, the strong and powerful contender. The raised blade slashed down hard. The light in Aeon Peg's eyes became brighter and brighter, and the corner of his mouth gradually rose into a proud smile. Bang! Sure enough. At the same time as a slight explosion, the Glasgow driven by Ray Minkai suddenly lost its balance. The Glasgow, who originally wanted to block the blade at the risk of losing its right arm, fell forward, exposing the cockpit behind it to the blade. With Aeon Peg's deliberate fierce attack, even if it was a training sword, it could smash the Glasgow cockpit into pieces. Needless to say, Guy, who was sitting inside, would naturally die in this accident. And, as the party who made the mistake, Aeon Peg would at most be punished. But, will this really be the case? Ray Minkai, who was exposed to the blade, didn't know. He only knew that at this moment, he saw the cat he saw in the dormitory before again. A snow-white cat with a pair of sapphire-like eyes appeared in the cockpit without warning and squatted in front of him. The pair of sky-blue eyes turned a blind eye to the blade that was about to cut the cockpit into pieces. They only stared at Guy, staring into his eyes. Meow. The white cat's meow seemed to be mocking Ray Minkai's incompetence. Meow. The cat was mocking Ray Minkai, the most outstanding student in the history of the Royal Knight Academy, for being so powerless and so insignificant in the face of the oppression from the aristocratic system. Die, Ray Minkai said to himself subconsciously. In the next moment, the tear-stained face in his dream appeared in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. No, I can't die. Ray Minkai, who was talking to himself, raised his right hand and wanted to grab the mysterious white cat sitting on the cockpit. Meow. The moment the shrill cry sounded, Ray Minkai's eyes were suddenly covered with blood red, and a trace of bloody mist rose from Ray Minkai's hands and quickly spread to the joystick and rushed along the joystick to Glasgow's body. At this moment, it was as if Ray Minkai was Glasgow, and Glasgow was Ray Minkai. A whistling sound was heard. Just as the blade was about to hit the roof of the cockpit, Glasgow, who had become the prey, suddenly changed his movement. He raised his right hand and caught the blade. How was that possible? It has clearly lost most of its power. Ampede watched in disbelief as his sword was unexpectedly caught by Glasgow, who was powerless to face death. Immediately afterward, the Glasgow squatted down, stretched out its right leg, and swept it with all its might. The Glasgow that Ampede was driving suddenly tilted and unexpectedly fell to the right, losing the opportunity to continue attacking. Immediately after, Ray Minkai's Glasgow released its right hand, and under the full power output of its only high-speed driving wheel, it performed a rapid turn. With the help of the strong inertia, he clasped his palms together to form a knife. Under everyone's watchful eyes, it flew over the enemy's shoulder and plunged straight into the enemy's cockpit. Boom! The moment the rumbling sound of metal exploded, the scarlet liquid that gushed out extremely irritated the eyes of the nobles present. Ah! The noble ladies who were cheering for the fierce battle screamed in horror and rushed into the arms of their relatives and partners in a panic. Quiet! At this moment, a stern shout stopped the somewhat panicked viewing platform. At the same time, for fifth-generation Nightmare, Sunderland, driven by the Royal Defense Legion, painted with royal patterns, stepped forward and surrounded the culprit who caused the chaos. This scene made everyone turn their eyes to the Emperor, who had been sitting silently on the throne from beginning to end. However, the Emperor did not speak, nor did he pay too much attention to the murder scene and the nobles. Instead, he stood up, turned around, and left without saying a word, leaving the head chamberlain standing in place. Offending the majesty of the emperor and killing a colleague. The punishment for both crimes is to be hanged. The head chamberlain took a step forward and shouted sternly. Chapter 3. Pa, pa, pa. 3 beams of light shone down, illuminating the gallows below clearly. The young man, with his hands tied behind his back, his feet chained to a heavy iron ball, and his neck bound by a straw rope that extended from the gallows, also appeared in front of everyone. In the darkness, a burly man dressed in black with the symbol of the executioner on his chest stepped out and stood beside the youth. He said in a deep voice, "Don't worry. The 103rd student of the Imperial Royal Knight Academy, Ray Minkai, a trainee knight, has been sentenced to death by hanging for offending His Majesty the Holy Emperor at the Academy's annual summary meeting and killing his colleagues. Your Highness, please investigate." As soon as the voice fell, a conversation sounded in the darkness behind the lights. "Is that him? The trainee knight who killed the Duke's son at a meeting personally attended by His Majesty?" "Yes. His name seems to be Ray Minkai. He's a very skilled knight student." There was a hint of playfulness in the voice. "Not bad. Hee hee, old classmate. It seems that you've taken a fancy to him." A burst of light laughter sounded. "That's right. After all, Lancelot is not something that an ordinary knight can control." "Your Highness." "Then all right. Although His Majesty has already given the order, I'll do him a favor." "Thank you very much for your understanding, Your Highness. We're classmates. There's no need to be so polite." A black shadow stood up and walked to the intersection of darkness and light, staring at the youth who was about to be hanged. "Execute him." "Yes, Your Highness." The executioner half knelt, clenched his right fist, and raised it in front of his chest. After responding, he stood up again, turned around, and shouted at the youth who had not reacted from the beginning to the end, "Sinner, execute." Ka. The sound of a mechanism activating sounded, and the wooden board under the youth's feet suddenly opened. The moment the heavy iron ball lost its support, it dragged the youth down. "Pa!" The youth's figure paused, and the straw rope that connected him to the execution rack suddenly broke. In the blink of an eye, the execution rack that should have taken away the youth's life had become empty. However, the executioner, who should have been alarmed by the strange phenomenon in front of him, did not issue any warning. Instead, he nodded, turned around with a straight face, and knelt down again to report to the prince hidden behind him. "Your Highness, the execution is complete." Then, the lights went dark. Everything fell into silence once again. "Pa!" When the light came on again, Ray Minkai found himself lying in a clean and bright room, and a man and a woman were sitting on the bed. The man was wearing a white coat and had short silver hair. Other than the rimless glasses on his face, there was always a cynical smile on his face. The woman had short purple hair and wore a brown female uniform. She seemed to be a technician. "Congratulations. Welcome to hell, Ray Minkai." As soon as he saw that Ray Minkai had woken up, the man took the lead to greet Ray Minkai. "Hell." Ray Minkai furrowed his brows as he recalled the events that had happened earlier. However, his memory only stopped at the moment when the Glasgow malfunctioned, when he was faced with Anpede's killing blow, and when he mysteriously caught the white cat that strangely appeared in the cockpit. Yes. After seeing the confusion on Ray Minkai's face, the man showed an "I knew it" expression and said, "Ray Minkai, you really have fallen into a state similar to the legendary Berserker state." "Berserker?" Ray Minkai was taken aback, but he saw the image on the tablet handed over by the purple-haired woman who had been sitting quietly next to him. On the screen, a young man with red eyes and a ferocious face was madly attacking the heavily armed soldiers around him. What surprised Ray Minkai was that the young man attacking the soldiers turned out to be himself. "Ray Minkai, you really don't remember?" the woman asked cautiously. Ray Minkai raised his hand to hold his forehead and shook his head in pain. "I don't remember this at all." Haha. Okay. We'll talk about these things later. Let's get back to the main topic." The man waved his hand and stopped Ray Minkai from talking to the woman. He turned around and took a plate from the table behind him. "Come, this is yours." Ray Minkai, you're a dead man now. Do you understand? Dead man. Yes. Although the woman's eyes showed a trace of reluctance, she still said calmly, "At the conference, you killed the eldest son of Duke said, Ampede. Therefore, His Majesty has ordered your execution." Yes, yes, yes. The silver-haired man nodded vigorously and immediately said happily, "In short, Ray Minkai is a dead man now. Whether it's the Royal Knight Academy's records or the Holy Britannia Empire's records, Ray Minkai no longer exists." Ray Minkai's eyebrows deeply wrinkled and his face became more and more confused, but he quickly relaxed. If Ray Minkai is already dead, then who am I? After this sentence, Ray Minkai's gaze fell on the plate in the silver-haired man's hand. A silver mask with exquisite patterns. It looked like a buckle that could be the activation key of the humanoid mobile weapon nightmare. Oh, you found it. You are indeed the #1 of the Royal Knight Academy," the silver-haired man exclaimed, and then began to introduce himself. "Oh, right. We haven't introduced ourselves yet. My name is Roy Desprint." Then he pointed to the purple-haired woman sitting next to him and said, "This is my assistant, Cecil Kermy. We are all members of the Empire's Special Dispatch Guide Technical Department, and I am the Empire's Special Dispatch Guide Technical Department, which is the main person in charge of the Special Dispatch." The Empire's Special Dispatch Guide Technical Department. Ray Minkai heard and already guessed some of the answers. "I have heard of you. You are the department that develops the Empire's newest mobile weapon. Now that I am here, you want me to wear this mask and serve you?" Oh ho! When Royd heard this, he began to clap. "Amazing! Amazing! It seems that I have underestimated you." "That's right. Now, under His Majesty's order, Ray Minkai is already a dead man. So, from today onwards, you are the Special Dispatch Pilot, Knight K." As he spoke, Royd raised his hand and picked up the silver mask with exquisite patterns on the plate and handed it to Ray Minkai. "Knight K, it seems that I have no other choice." Ray Minkai laughed at himself, took the silver mask, and put it on. Oh, it suits you very well." "Cecil, I said it would suit Ray Minkai very well." After looking back and forth at Ray Minkai's new look for a while, Royd clapped again. "Count, now is not the time to talk about this." After Cecil helplessly rolled his eyes at Royd, he picked up the buckle on the plate and showed it to Ray Minkai. "Ray Minkai, this is the activation key of the world's only 7th-generation mobile weapon, Nightmare. If you accept, then from now on, it and Lancelot are yours. In exchange, I will be the nameless Knight K from now on." Ray Minkai laughed at himself, took the key, and said in a deep voice, "Whether I like it or not, from today onwards, I am destined to be one with Lancelot as Knight K. Yes, I'm glad that you have such awareness." Ray Minkai no K. In the end, Royd appreciated Ray Minkai's awareness. The next day, on a secret weapon test site somewhere in the Empire, a storm was brewing. Boom, boom, boom. The hidden sentry turrets that were randomly placed on the plane continued to explode. And the cause of the explosions was the white figure that quickly shuttled through the plane. While it was moving at high speed, it was not stopped by the turrets that popped up from the ground. Instead, it waved its hands and threw out the sharp claws equipped on its arms, accurately destroying the turrets. Da-da-da. On the hillside not far away, several automatic turrets locked onto the white figure that was wreaking havoc in the firepower position, but they lost track of the white figure in the midst of their flames. It was as if the target that had been locked onto by the system's red crosshairs did not exist. In the air, the claws fell from the sky. In the blink of an eye, all the automatic turrets were destroyed. The scene of the white figure wreaking havoc on the plane was witnessed by everyone in the command hall. Not long after, the command hall was already flooded with endless exclamations. The value is much higher than expected. Even the adaptability value is still rising. Sehil sat in front of the computer, constantly monitoring the data sent back from the test site. Royd, with his hands on his hips, leisurely looked at the surprised crowd in the command hall, smiled, and said, "Of course. Moreover, that guy's also serious. 95. K and Lancelot's adaptability exceeded 95%, and the value is still rising. Seahill suddenly shouted. "Oh, here it comes," Royd said, and his eyes emitted a sharp light. 96%, 97%, 100%. K and Lancelot's adaptability. No, it's the synchronization rate. K and Lancelot have reached 100% synchronization. Seahill's exclamation once again caused everyone in the command hall to exclaim. In this regard, Royd just smiled. After instructing Seahill to inform Ray Minkai to pay attention to the limit time, he turned and left the command hall. It seems that following His Majesty to watch the monkey show on a whim is also rewarding. That guy is really the best part in the world. The sun slowly set, and the test site was already in a mess. Whether it was the hillside or the plain, it was full of the wreckage of turrets and target machines. The white figure, the product of Royd's painstaking efforts, the seventh-generation nightmare Lancelot of the Holy Britannia Empire, stood quietly on the hillside. In the open cockpit, a man with a silver mask on his face stared at the sun that gradually sank into the horizon for a long time. At this time, Seahill's voice came from the headset. "K, latest order. We have been specially transferred to the 11th District and will conduct a combat test on Lancelot in the 11th District." Ray Minkai replied, "Understood. Begin returning now." The next second, Royd's voice came. "K, I'm very sorry. Now I have bad news for you. Your roommate from the Royal Knight Academy seems to have died in the 11th District. He was killed by terrorists in the 11th District. In an instant, the entire test site seemed to be shrouded in winter." Chapter 4. Dark clouds covered the sky, and flashes of lightning flashed back and forth in the dark cloud from time to time. Coupled with the rumbling that shook the heavens and earth, the scene was indeed quite frightening. Whoosh! Amidst the rumbling, a rainstorm arrived. The rainstorm that was so dense that it was almost impossible to see what was outside of a meter clearly became the main character of this world at this moment. However, in this rainstorm, there was a man standing among a group of tombstones in the Royal Cemetery of District 11. Swoosh! Swoosh! Kacha! The rainstorm continued to wash the tombstone in front of him, and the flashing lightning illuminated every word on the tombstone. "To the supreme glory of the Holy Britannia Empire." The man raised his hand to take off the silver mask on his face, and softly read every word on the tombstone under the light of the lightning. "Knight Gawain Elpha Seth, son of Viscount Seth, died in battle on May 10th, 2017 of the Holy Calendar in order to defend the glory of the Empire." Oomph! Ha 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 ha! As soon as he finished reading, the man suddenly raised his head and laughed loudly. Even if the storm drowned his laughter in an instant and blocked his mouth, it could not stop the man from laughing wildly from the bottom of his heart. "It's so ugly. It's so ugly. Gawain, May 10th. May 10th. In 2 days, it will be your 20th birthday. You're actually lying in this cold coffin at the critical moment of your 20th birthday." The man raised his hand and pointed fiercely at the tombstone and scolded loudly. In his agitation, he fiercely threw the silver mask in his hand on the tombstone. "Look, we're really a pair of brothers who went through thick and thin. Ray Minkai is dead, and you, Gawain Alpha Seth, are also dead. Ha ha ha." As expected of the legendary dual swordsmen of the Royal Knight Academy, who went through thick and thin together. "Get up, get up. Didn't you say that you were addicted to the waste skills of Count Alenhard's third daughter? Get up. Didn't you say that Viscount Beaumont's eldest daughter's ventriloquism was so good that you were addicted to it for more than half a year? These beautiful ladies are still waiting for your favor. Why are you lying in a coffin like this?" After the man finished scolding, he weakly sat on the ground with his back against the tombstone. Even if the rapidly rising water drowned his feet, the man was unable to move him. Whoosh! The man raised his hand to block the incoming torrential rain in front of his eyes and muttered, "Gaolong Ray Minkai is dead. The only one left was the nameless knight named Knight K. What do you want me to do? The slowly flowing water on the ground washed the silver mask that the man had thrown aside to his left hand. The cold touch made the man shiver slightly. You, the man to the tattoos, and tattoos to the tattoos to be, still not forgetting to make fun of me. Boom! Coincidentally, as soon as the man finished speaking, a burst of thunder rang out from the horizon, as well as lightning that swam from the horizon to the dark cloud above the man's head in an instant. The rain is getting heavier and heavier. Galong. The man put down his right hand to block the rain and faced the torrential rain that could drown everything, feeling the pain of the bean-sized raindrops hitting his face. After a long time, the man bent down, picked up the silver mask that was rising and falling in the water, and slowly put on his face. Galong. This is the last time we see each other. After saying that, the man walked away without looking back. However, the man had not gone far when a low and unfamiliar voice suddenly sounded behind him. Do you want revenge? Do you want power? A small figure with blue pupils slowly appeared on the tombstone. The man's footsteps paused for a moment and smiled. Who knows? Right now, I'm just a nameless knight with the code name K. Nameless knight? Hee. Looks like you've forgotten who you are. The torrential rain poured down, and in the blink of an eye, the small figure lying on the tombstone was drowned in the layers of rain. The man's figure gradually disappeared into the rain. The torrential rain would eventually disperse, and the warm and moving sun would once again shine on this world. Ray Minkai, who regained his mood, ignored the clothes on his body that had been soaked by the torrential rain and drove straight back to the temporary base arranged by the governor's office in the 11th District for special missions. But before Ray Minkai could catch his breath after returning to the base, he was caught red-handed by Royd, who rushed over. Okay, we can go now. It said that there was a gas leak in Shinjuku. Before Royd could finish half of his words, he was shocked by Ray Minkai's clothes that were still dripping water. Wow. F***CK. Did you drive back in the rain? Not good. You'll catch a cold. Okay, go change your clothes and take a shower. I'll get you new clothes right away. Royd, who was behind Royd, interrupted Royd's words. She ordered Ray Minkai to change his clothes and turn around to get new clothes. Seeing the situation, Royd also spread out his hands and said helplessly, "It looks like we have to set off a little later. But then again, I don't know if we can be of any use." Although that was what he said, Ray Minkai's actions were also very fast. After all, in the Royal Knight Academy, no knight trainee dared to delay time on such a trivial matter. The students who dared to do this had already been nailed to the wall of shame of the academy. The special mission team that set off in a hurry finally caught up with the army sent by the governor's office in the 11th District before arriving in Shinjuku. Oh, what a big scene. Royd, who had just contacted the mothership where the governor was, waved his hand and said with some excitement, "That." Could it be that the general wanted to annihilate the terrorists in one fell swoop, because he didn't know what that important thing was, so he let the terrorists escape? See here hesitantly voiced his conjecture. "I'm afraid so." Ray Minkai, who had changed into a driver's suit, agreed with Sahil's speculation and added, "I'm afraid that this big scene is because General Bartley went overboard." "Oh, went overboard?" Royd immediately caught the key point. "Yes, went overboard. According to normal logic, General Bartley's target shouldn't be here." Ray Minkai stretched out his finger and pointed to the Shinjuku area on the map and said slowly, "Even if we just came to the 11th District, we still have some understanding of this area. Although there are a lot of 11 gathered here, it's not the headquarters that the terrorists should choose." Ray Minkai moved his finger and pointed to the other side of Shinjuku. After all, next to Shinjuku, there is a bustling settlement. Whether it's the 3rd Prince Clovis LA Britannia or General Bartley, they won't turn a blind eye to the fact that the Shinjuku ghetto was occupied by terrorists and used as their headquarters. Oh, wonderful, wonderful, worthy of being the top student of the Royal Knight Academy. Royd clapped his hands in amazement and looked at his assistant with a smug face. "Sahil, it seems that we really picked up a treasure. Director, you have said this sentence more than 100 times. The assistant sighed helplessly. Really? Aha! After Royd laughed, he suddenly put on a serious face. Okay. Although we don't know if the terrorists who attacked Galen's unit are in the same group as the terrorists who hijacked the gas weapons, if you want to avenge your friend, maybe this is an opportunity. Revenge? There was a trace of ridicule under the mask. Ray Minkai shook his head. No, now is not the time. Oh, is it? All of a sudden, a cloud rose into the sky in the distance. It looked like something had violently exploded. Not good. The mothership is calling. The gas weapons have exploded. Now the governor has ordered the army to move out immediately to eliminate the threat of the gas as soon as possible. As soon as the news came, Royd, Sahil, and Guy looked at each other and showed an expression of as expected. Well, it seems that we don't have many opportunities to appear. Sahil, okay, you go check on Lancelot first. I'll contact the prince to see if he can let Lancelot go out for a walk. Understood. Royd and Sahil, who were busy, didn't know that Ray Minkai had indeed changed after returning from the rain. In his mind, some memory fragments emerged faintly. Although these memory fragments were somewhat fragmented, Guy still noticed some key points from them. The person who appeared in these memory fragments was the third prince of the Empire, Clovis Ela Britannia. He would soon be killed by an anonymous person who changed into Britannia's soldier equipment. These memory fragments shocked Lei Mingkai, but they also raised doubts in his mind. Why did such a strange change happen to him? Was it the mysterious white cat that made him lose his mind and fall into a frenzy and then appeared in front of Galen's tomb? But strangely, Ray Minkai didn't rush into the third prince's mothership to warn him like a loyal minister in movies and TV series. Instead, he chose to remain silent and coldly watched everything happen. Moreover, in addition to these memory fragments, Ray Minkai also knew that the so-called terrorists who robbed the gas weapons did indeed establish their headquarters in the Shinjuku slums. But Ray Minkai chose to hide this fact again. Let the wind blow even louder. Galen. Walking out of the mobile test vehicle, Guy stood on the ground scattered with gravel and looked at the mothership protected by many soldiers and the humanoid, mobile weapon Sunderland from afar. At this time, the sound of explosions and gunshots mixed in with the wind could be faintly heard. In Guy's ears, screams of agony could be heard. These were the screams of humans being slaughtered. Kate, His Highness finally relented and let Lancelot attack. From the looks of it, the terrorists seemed to be wantonly spreading the poison gas weapons. F*CK, your first combat mission is going to be very difficult. Royd leaned half of his body out of the door and shouted at Ray Minkai while waving. Ray Minkai turned back and smiled. Without a doubt, this is hell. Amidst the sounds of gunfire, Ray Minkai recalled the night when the special team arrived in Area 11. Under Ray Minkai's request, Royd struggled to obtain some information related to Galen from some sources. After the conference ended, Galen was arranged to be a member of the 9th Special Division in Area 11. On the night he joined the team, Galen seemed to have quickly integrated into the 9th Special Division and even chatted happily with one of the female members. But in the morning of the second day, Galen was assigned a mission. It looked very comfortable, but in fact, it was undoubtedly a suicide mission. Driving Sunderland and a small investigation team formed by honorary Britannians, they went to the outskirts of Narita to investigate. The result of the mission, complete annihilation. And the person who assigned this investigation mission was the leader of the Pure Blood faction, Jeremiah Godebald. Chapter 5. Da-da-da. The sound of gunfire was endless. Heavily armed soldiers shuttled through the buildings and killed all the 11s who couldn't escape in time. On the street, under the order of the third prince, the governor of the 11th district, Sunderland, a humanoid mobile weapon, galloped on the road. Sometimes they raised their guns and shot down the people who looked up to observe the situation on the street. Sometimes they bent down and knocked down the broken wall to drive out the people hiding behind the wall. Then they raised the guns in their hands to kill. On the other side of the street, the pure white Lancelot quickly drove past. Ray Minkai saw everything that happened around him, but he didn't say anything. When Lancelot changed its direction, Ray Minkai suddenly felt that the surrounding atmosphere was different. This is Ray Minkai's eyes narrowed slightly. The smell of a wolf. In Ray Minkai's whisper, Lancelot's legs bounced, and the 5 meters tall steel giant suddenly jumped into the air. In the next second, a series of bullets that tore through the air swept through the position where Lancelot was just at in a straight line, splashing a burst of sand and dust. Is there no IFF signal? After Lancelot made a half circle in the air and landed behind the broken wall about 2 meters away, Ray Minkai looked at the two Sunderland that had the same paint as the Holy Britannia Empire's army, but there was no identification signal. Obviously, this was the enemy that had repeatedly defeated the army, the terrorists that General Batley insisted on. Interesting. Ray Minkai softly spat out this word. First, it was because the enemy could accurately capture Lancelot's position. Second, it was because some fragments of those memory fragments once again appeared in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. The combination of the two made Ray Minkai subconsciously sigh. What's more, as the memory fragments that suddenly appeared were confirmed to be something that would happen in the near future, Ray Minkai's desire for revenge was quietly rising and growing stronger. However, although he sighed, he still had to do the work. The broken wall in front of Lancelot was quickly shattered by the two Sunderland's bullets. In the dust, Lancelot quickly retreated and waved his hands. The claws installed on his forearms suddenly shot out and rushed through the dust in the air. In the blink of an eye, the claws broke the arms of the two Sunderland that were still shooting in place. Immediately after, right before the Sunderland's machine gun fell to the ground, Lancelot flew up along the trajectory of the two claws. First, he raised his leg and kicked the head of the Sunderland on the left into pieces. Then, he turned around and kicked the other Sunderland that was still unable to react. The other Sunderland crashed into the wall and lost all ability to react. Virum, ka. In the blink of an eye, the two Sunderland that attempted to ambush Lancelot were turned into dead remains. They couldn't even activate the emergency escape mechanism. Of course, this was done on purpose by Ray Minkai. In this short period of time, although Ray Minkai didn't learn much from Royd about the design of the airframe, he understood the structure of the airframe very well. Therefore, in this situation where he intentionally targeted the Sunderland's emergency escape mechanism, it was just a tool for him to manipulate. Help, help! We're being ambushed. Is there anyone nearby? Come and save us. Suddenly, Lancelot caught a distress signal. Without saying anything, Ray Minkai continued with his work. He drove Lancelot at full speed towards the direction of the distress signal. Just when they were a distance away, Ray Minkai's heart skipped a beat. Lancelot immediately jumped to the side and sped up while sticking close to the wall beside it. It narrowly avoided the ambush that came from behind the wall on the left. Ray Minkai calmly pulled the left control stick. Lancelot waved its left arm and shot the left claw at the wall on the left. Bang! The broken wall was first shot by the terrorists and then hit by Lancelot's claw. Finally, it couldn't take the heavy load and collapsed. Amidst the dust, another explosion was heard. It was the airframe. It was the explosion of the airframe after it was destroyed. Ray Minkai didn't pay too much attention to this scene. To the current situation, this was just a small episode on the battlefield. What was worth his attention was that these small episodes kept happening behind him. It was as if, Lancelot, and even the movements of all the military forces in Shinjuku were clearly under the enemy's control. If that was the case, after the enemy seized Sunderland, they might be able to deduce the reason why they turned off the identification signal between friend and foe. Otherwise, with the ability of a normal pilot, they wouldn't be able to deal with such a sudden attack. This was also why from the beginning of the war until now, the terrorists, who had always been incompetent and only knew how to play dirty tricks like underground rats, could suddenly cause so many casualties to the military. Thinking of this, Lancelot no longer paid attention to the terrorists who were lying in ambush on the road. He directly burst into the area where the distress signal came from like a gust of wind. Bang! Bang! Lancelot waved his hands again and again. The two claws swept across the broken walls on the ground like a dragon swimming out of the sea. They accurately destroyed the Sunderland driven by the terrorists who were pouring firepower on the buildings not far away. The sound of the explosion immediately attracted the attention of the other terrorists. At this moment, whether it was holding semi-automatic rifles or driving Sunderland, the terrorists immediately turned their muzzles and madly attacked Lancelot. However, they couldn't keep up with Lancelot's speed. They could only watch as Lancelot, who was as fast as lightning, easily tore open the encirclement and successfully rescued the army that had been besieged for half a day. Is that a monster? In a corner of the battlefield, a teenager wearing the Ashford Academy uniform was shocked as he listened to the conversation of the terrorists who were under his command on the communication channel. The current conversation was no longer as relaxed as when they were facing the Empire's army that had been beaten to a pulp by them. The high morale didn't last long before it was scattered by Lancelot, who suddenly rushed into the battlefield. They were no longer as strong as before. However, it's good to let them stall for time. After all, they are only terrorists. Before I achieve my goal, do your best to create an opportunity for me. The teenager looked at the crown mark on the electronic map and showed a proud smile. HM, the enemy's movement has changed? At the same time that the teenager hiding behind the scenes gave the latest order, Ray Minkai also noticed the changes in the surroundings. The enemy's pursuit had decreased. Is the end of this slaughter about to begin? Let me add fuel to the fire. Ray Minkai's eyes flashed with a light. He sent a signal to the Sunderland team that he rescued to return to the rear. Then Lancelot, under Guy's control, turned to the other side. Where is it? Ray Minkai's eyes wandered around, constantly inspecting the surrounding blood-spattered ruins and corpses. Suddenly, Ray Minkai's eyes focused. Found you! Lancelot accelerated and jumped, nimbly crossing the wall full of bullet holes in front of him, and landed in front of a woman wearing a unique female pilot suit. I'm Knight K, the test pilot assigned to you. I'm here to support you. Reporting to you. Ray Minkai's voice was transmitted to the woman who walked out of the bloody and corpse-strewn warehouse through the sound speaker. Special assignment? Special assignment guide technical department? His Highness actually requested this department to send people to support you? The brown-skinned woman with long gray hair tied into a ponytail looked up at Lancelot, who was a stranger to her, and said, I'm the subordinate of Minister Jeremiah Godbold, border count of the Holy Britannia Empire. My name is Veretta New. If it's possible, I hope you can send me back to the rear. Veretta New? Sure enough, the memory that appeared in my mind has been confirmed again. After Ray Minkai heard the woman's words, he secretly said. Then, Ray Minkai opened Lancelot's cockpit, stood out from it, and looked down at the woman who exuded a mature aura from head to toe. Her brown skin set off a strangely beautiful woman. I understand. If you don't mind, you can squeeze into the cockpit. After all, this is still a battlefield. If you sit on Lancelot's hands, I'm afraid you will encounter an accident during the battle. As soon as Ray Minkai finished speaking, the woman, Veretta, suddenly frowned. Although she was a soldier, she was still a woman with a clean background. However, as long as she heard the sound of gunfire from afar, the nature of a soldier constantly told Veretta that there was not much choice at the moment. I understand. Thank you, sir. In this way, Ray Minkai sat in the driver's seat in a gentlemanly manner. After he waited for Veretta to sit on his lap with some difficulty, he closed Lancelot's cockpit and restarted Lancelot. Veretta New, sit tight. Lancelot is not comparable to an ordinary body. After that, Ray Minkai did not wait for Veretta New in his arms to speak and immediately pushed Lancelot's speed to the extreme. The overload brought by the sudden acceleration not only blocked Veretta New's words, but also pressed Veretta New's entire body into Ray Minkai's chest. In an instant, the strong, masculine aura and the thick and strong chest made Veretta New dizzy. She could no longer remember what she wanted to say. Coincidentally, The two Sunderland planes piloted by the terrorists had mysteriously appeared from the other side of the street. The moment they discovered Lancelot, they raised their guns and opened fire. Not good. Be careful. Veretta knew, who was a little dizzy, saw the two Sunderland that launched the sneak attack and could not help but scream. Oomph. Annoying bugs. Ray Minkai coldly snorted. Lancelot raised his right hand in front of his chest. Following a burst of fluorescent light, the oncoming barrage of bullets seemed to have hit an impenetrable wall. After a series of futile crackling sounds, the bullets bounced off in other directions. What? It actually blocked live bullets. Veretta New's hands were on Ray Minkai's chest. She pulled open a small distance and looked in disbelief at Lancelot, who was advancing under the enemy's hail of bullets. I said it before, Lancelot is not something those small fries can compare to. While Ray Minkai was speaking, Lancelot extended his left hand. The claw on his forearm shot out again and directly blew apart the head of the Sunderland on the right. His right hand went down, and the claw on his right arm popped out. Borrowing the reaction force from the claw hitting the ground, Lancelot jumped high. With an extremely fast speed, he did a somersault in the air and used his left leg to finish off the last Sunderland. Oh! Although Ray Minkai's Lancelot easily finished off the enemy, the passenger in Ray Minkai's arms seemed to not be used to Lancelot's speed. Sorry, bear with it for a while. We will immediately return to the rear. Ray Minkai blinked and said apologetically, No, don't worry. Veretta New's strength was already depleted after the series of attacks from Lancelot. She could only helplessly choose to lie in Ray's arms. Cha-Cha, notify the entire army. Immediately stop attacking. Immediately stop attacking. No matter if it is the Britannia Army or 11, treat them all equally. Suddenly, the order from the third prince of the Holy Britannia Empire, District 11's Governor Clovis L.A. Britannia, was transmitted to the entire army. Chapter 6. As soon as Lancelot returned to the rear base, Royd and Cecil were already standing by the car, waiting for Lancelot's return. When Royd and Cecil saw the unfamiliar brown beauty stand up from Ray Minkai's arms, Royd let out a strange cry. Yo, yo, yo. I didn't expect our knight K to not only have a good brain, but he also has good luck with women. He just went out for a trip and picked up a beauty. TSK, TSK. Director, don't talk nonsense. She seems to be a nightmare knight here. Although Cecil was also surprised, he finally remembered the identity of the brown beauty. Belonging to the 9th Special Division, Veretta knew, with the help of the leash, Veretta fell from Lancelot's cockpit to the ground. Her face was still flushed, but she quickly pulled herself together and solemnly introduced herself to Royd and Cecil. Oh, she really is a nightmare knight here? Boring. Boring. When he heard that it was as Cecil said, Royd understood everything. As a soldier, it was inevitable to have these kinds of interactions on the battlefield. Royd, why is it so quiet here? Where are the soldiers? Ray Minkai, who came down from Lancelot, looked around and found that it was indeed much quieter than the road where the army and Elenev were evacuating. Oh, it seems that they were called to assist in the evacuation of Elenev. Royd waved his hand in boredom and walked to Lancelot's feet. He raised his hand and patted Lancelot's thigh while looking at Ray Minkai and said, Compared to that, I want to know you're in Lancelot's driving data more. Ray Minkai shrugged and gestured for him to do whatever he wanted. He then looked at Sihir and asked, Sihir, can you find a weapon? Weapon? Cecil was a bit confused. Well, weapon. It's too quiet here. As the light on the silver mast changed, Ray Minkai's gaze fell on the mothership not far away. Knight, you mean to say that the third prince? The quick-witted Valletta immediately understood what Yi Huan meant. My name is K. Veretta knew. After Ray Minkai refuted Veretta's name, he asked Cecil again. Yes. Wait. Cecil responded, turned around, and ran back to the special transport vehicle. After rummaging for a while, he ran out with a bunch of guns. K, see if these are enough. Ray Minkai stared blankly for a moment before shaking his head with a bitter smile. He picked out a pistol from the pile of guns and casually checked it before hanging it on his waist. This is enough. Cecil and Royd. I'll go take a look. However, before Lei Mingkai could take more than a few steps, Valletta, who had also picked up a pistol from the pile of guns, followed behind him. I'll go with you. Night. No, okay. Veretta's face was full of seriousness. Lei Mingkai's surprised gaze fell on Veretta's face through the mask. After a while, he nodded. Sure enough, there were no soldiers around the mothership at all. This strange situation made Veretta's heart sink. When the two approached the door of the mothership, Veretta patted Lei Mingkai's shoulder and asked in a low voice, "How did you find out?" Lei Mingkai, who had his back pressed against the cold steel armor of the mothership, carefully observed the interior of the cabin door. He looked back at Veretta and whispered back, "Didn't I say just now? It's too quiet." Even if His Royal Highness ordered the army in 11 to evacuate, there was no need to transfer the forces around the mothership. In fact, it was not as Lei Mingkai said. He noticed the change in the surrounding forces and realized that the situation might change. Instead, it was caused by the memory fragments that had suddenly appeared in his mind. Lei Mingkai would never tell anyone about this. Lei Mingkai fumbled around the cabin door for a while and found the handle to open it. However, Lei Mingkai did not immediately open the cabin door. Instead, he suddenly turned around and grabbed Veretta's hand, took a few steps, and retreated a distance. Immediately afterward, an explosion blasted the cabin door open. Bang! 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 Before Veretta could figure out why Lei Mingkai suddenly pulled her away, Lei Mingkai had already raised his gun and fired at the exploded cabin door. However, Lei Mingkai's shots did not hit anyone. Instead, he was accidentally shot by the person hiding behind the cabin door, and his right arm was grazed by a bullet. Under the severe pain, Lei Mingkai could not hold the pistol tightly. Clang! Lei Mingkai's pistol fell to the ground. At this time, Veretta, who finally recovered, was about to shoot, but Lei Mingkai unexpectedly pushed her down. "Be careful!" Two muffled sounds of bullets piercing through the human body rang in Veretta's ears. "You!" Veretta looked at Lei Mingkai, who pushed her down and blocked the bullets in shock. Lei Mingkai clenched his teeth, picked up the pistol that had fallen to the side, turned around and fired several bullets at the cabin door. But the enemy had already disappeared. "Don't chase." When Veretta got up and wanted to chase, Lei Mingkai pulled Veretta back. "You?" An indescribable emotion rose in Veretta's heart. Quickly go and see if His Highness the Third Prince is all right. Don't worry about me." Royd and Cecil should have already heard the commotion here. Lei Mingkai waved his hand, indicating for Veretta to speed up and check the situation. Veretta, who knew that she could not waste time, clenched her teeth, looked deeply at Lei Mingkai, and then suddenly turned around and ran into the mothership through the exploded cabin door. "You are really going all out, ah?" As the pool of blood under Lei Mingkai gradually expanded, Lei Mingkai, who was somewhat unconscious, heard the mysterious white cat's voice. "Hey, after all, I'm just a nameless person." Lei Mingkai laughed self-deprecatingly. Then he asked again, "Those memory fragments were your doing?" "No, I didn't do that." These things have always existed in your mind. Right now, they're just waking up. The white cat's voice gradually faded away, and it was replaced by a series of chaotic and hurried footsteps. They came really fast. After Lei Mingkai muttered, he fell into boundless darkness. When the bad news came out, it was suppressed by General Batley, who reacted. But it was already too late. Due to the unexpected actions of Lei Mingkai and Veretta, the news of the assassination of the third prince of the Holy Britannia Empire, Clovis L.A., Britannia was not suppressed by General Batley like in the original work. It was not until the rebellion launched by Jeremiah of the Pure Blood faction that the news was announced. Instead, it was spread to the high-level personnel of the entire 11th District early on, and it was also transmitted back to the Holy Britannia Empire as soon as possible. The red light that represented the operation had been on for more than 6 hours. Royd and Sahil had been waiting in front of the operating room since they sent Ray Minkai to the operating table. Next to them, Veretta had also been waiting here for a while. Of course, because she was the first witness to the assassination of the third prince. Even if it was confirmed that she was not the murderer, she was now being monitored by the two soldiers sent by Jeremiah. In this regard, Veretta did not care much. She knew that this was a necessary procedure. However, what she cared about was that after Jeremiah learned that the third prince, Clovis L.A., Britannia, was assassinated, the first thing he did was not to search for the murderer, but to look at Ray Minkai suspiciously. Why? The reason was that Ray Minkai was able to detect the intention of the murderer to harm the third prince and took action. Such a coincidence really made people, no, it made Jeremiah, who had been blinded by hatred, suspicious. However, as Jeremiah's right-hand man, Veretta raised an objection at this time. The mature and beautiful brown-haired woman stood in front of her boss with righteous words. She did not hesitate to use her personality as a guarantee to prove that Lei Minkai, the masked knight who blocked the bullet for her, was not the murderer of the third prince. In the end, under the oath of his capable subordinate and the guarantee of the Sunderland team that was saved by Ray Minkai on the battlefield, Jeremiah finally gave up on pursuing Ray Minkai's responsibility. Time passed by slowly. Unknowingly, the operation time had passed the 7th hour. In the dull waiting, the red light that symbolized the operation in progress suddenly went out. Royd and Cecil, who were energized, immediately stood up from their chairs and walked to the door of the operation room, looking at the doctor who walked out of the operation room. The bullet in the knight's body has been taken out. Fortunately, the vital parts were not damaged. After the 24-hour observation period, there shouldn't be any major problems. Is that so? Thank you, doctor. Cecil breathed a sigh of relief and bowed slightly to the doctor. While Royd breathed a sigh of relief, he did not forget to look at Veretta, who was being monitored by the two soldiers. You should be relieved now, right? Miss Veretta. Veretta silently looked at Ray Minkai, who was being pushed out of the operation room by the nurses, then turned around and left the hospital with the two soldiers. TSK. He only took a few bullets to win the heart of a beauty. This is a good deal for K. Royd looked at Ray Minkai, whose arm was full of needles and face was wearing an oxygen mask, in amazement. Director, what are you talking about? K is still in a coma. Cecil felt that it was not worth it for Ray Minkai. He was already in such a state, yet he was still treated by Royd. What's wrong with this? Night, beauty, aren't these the standard in novels? Cecil, since Kay is fine, we should go back and see how Lancelot is doing. Otherwise, it might be a pity for Kay if he has a beauty, but not a BMW. After watching Ray Minkai being pushed into the ward by the nurses, Royd put his hands in his pockets and leisurely left the hospital with Cecil. Chapter 7. Orange. This was a common word. Jeremiah, who was supposed to kill Zero, the murderer of the third Prince Clovis, suddenly betrayed them and let the suspects go. He also strongly demanded, and even stopped his subordinates from chasing after Zero and the others who fled the scene with Suzuki. His state of mind was so intense that he did not hesitate to attack his subordinates, allowing Zero and the others to escape from the encirclement. As a result, the word orange became a joke from this moment on, and it also caused Jeremiah's newly acquired power to slip away. Of course, for Ray Minkai, this was just an entertainment during his stay in the hospital. The only thing he cared about was that when the orange incident happened, he noticed a scene. Eyes. The black mask that covered the entire head before Jeremiah suddenly betrayed them, quietly opened a window. A window that allowed the eyes hidden under the mask to look directly at Jeremiah. Ray Minkai, with his keen intuition, immediately realized that this might be the key to the orange incident. But he still needed more clues. Ray Minkai, who had just received the discharge notice from the shock doctor, only sent a message to Roy that everything was normal. Then, according to Veretta's previous notice, he went to the political affairs hall, ready to meet the so-called big shots. But, After Ray Minkai arrived at the political affairs hall, he found that the so-called big shots did not seem to have the intention to make things difficult for him. Instead, after casually asking about the situation at the time, they gently let go of Ray Minkai and even gave him a delicious lunch. This treatment made Ray Minkai a little surprised. But soon, he learned a piece of news from the staff responsible for receiving him. Cornelia Britannia, the second princess of the Holy Britannia Empire. The Britannia, which, the princess of the empire known as the Battle Queen, had accepted the appointment as the new governor of District 11. In a few days, Her Royal Highness, who was very different from other princesses, had been sweeping the enemy on the battlefield for a long time and opening up territory for the empire, would lead her knight regiment to District 11. Needless to say, Ray Minkai knew that the purpose of this princess, who was like a goddess of war, to come to District 11 was undoubtedly to deal with Zero, the murderer who killed the prince of the Britannia Empire. As such, a nameless pawn like Ray Minkai was naturally not as important as an imperial princess. After all, if he accidentally provoked Cornelia Britannia, the princess of the empire who revered strength, he wouldn't have a good time. After thinking it through, Ray Minkai also let go of his worries. After enjoying a big meal in the political affairs hall, he prepared to leave the political affairs hall and return to the special mission station. However, Ray Minkai had just taken a few steps out of the political affairs hall when he heard a gust of wind above his head. At the same time, he heard an extremely panicked scream. "Be careful! Get out of the way!" Ray Minkai was stunned. He took a step back, stretched out his hands, and raised his head to look. A figure accurately fell into Ray Minkai's arms as her dress fluttered. In an instant, a pink light flew in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. As the fragrance rushed into Ray Minkai's nostrils, the pink hair quietly fell down, and a beautiful face was reflected in Ray Minkai's eyes. Suddenly, Ray Minkai's eyes were drowned by a dazzling white light. Then, the white light quickly retreated and was replaced by a green grassland full of countless flowers. The wind was blowing. Countless petals danced in the air with the flow of the wind. It was very beautiful. In this beautiful scenery, the sound of footsteps could be heard quietly. A white dress, pink hair that fluttered in the wind, long eyebrows, beautiful pupils that were like purple gemstones. The person who had all the beautiful things in the world came in front of Ray Minkai as the petals danced in the air. "Kai! She!" So he shouted. However, before Ray Minkai could react, the grassland, the person seemed to have suffered some kind of impact and suddenly collapsed. All that was left was the small hand that kept waving back and forth in front of Ray Minkai's eyes. "Hey, are you okay?" The pink-haired girl who descended from the sky looked at Ray Minkai worriedly. Yeah." Ray Minkai blinked, shook his head, and smiled. "I'm fine. What about you? Why did you suddenly fall from above?" Seeing that Ray Minkai was really fine, the pink girl revealed an apologetic smile. "I'm sorry. I didn't expect there to be someone down there." "No, I also didn't expect a girl to fall from the sky. It's as if..." After Ray Minkai helped the pink girl up, he thought for a while and smiled. "It's as if you're a fairy from a fairy tale." Ray Minkai's words immediately made the pink girl burst out laughing. "I'm not a fairy. Sorry for making you laugh. Are you okay?" "No, I'm fine. But why did you do such a dangerous thing? If I didn't catch you from below, I'm afraid you would have fallen." Ray Minkai's words immediately reminded the pink girl of what she wanted to do and what she was going to do. The pink girl slightly approached Ray Minkai and begged in a low voice, "Actually, I'm being chased by bad people right now, so can you please save me?" "Save you?" Ray Minkai was startled and helplessly pointed at the silver mask on his face and said, "You want me, a stranger who deliberately hid my face, to save you?" The pink girl nodded her head heavily and replied in a crisp voice, "Yes, please save me." Ray Minkai was suddenly speechless. Not long after, under the escort of Ray Minkai, the two quickly left the area where the government office was located and officially stepped into the bustling city center. Seeing the continuous flow of people in the city center, the pink girl's mood immediately rose, but she seemed to know that she should maintain the demeanor of a lady, so she didn't make any noise. The two shuttled through the streets, and, from time to time, they talked about the things on both sides of the street. All right. Suddenly, the pink girl clapped her hands and said with a sudden realization, I don't think I've introduced myself. Ray Minkai nodded and pointed at himself and said, Me too. Hee hee. Seems like our memory isn't very good. The pink girl smiled happily, but hesitated for a while, and then said, UFFI. This is my name. UFFI. Ray Minkai silently repeated and bent his finger to tap the silver mask on his face. K. This is my current name. I'm very sorry. Due to some reason, my original name can't be used anymore. No, it's okay. Mr. K, nice to meet you. The pink girl, UFFI, took 2 steps forward and stood in front of Ray Minkai and said with a smile. Ray Minkai secretly sighed and helplessly said, I'm only 19 years old this year. You don't have to call me Mr. 19 years old? That's not much older than me. UFFI looked at Ray Minkai's face that was covered by the silver mask in surprise. Yes. So, you can call me K, UFFI. Ray Minkai nodded and casually said, You said before that you were being chased by bad people. It should be a lie. Huh? The pink girl was shocked and quickly turned around, not daring to look at Ray Minkai's eyes. Little did she know, UFFI's behavior confirmed Ray Minkai's guess. But before Ray Minkai could denounce her, UFFI took small steps and ran to the other side. Meow, the pink girl called out in a friendly manner. In front of her, a black cat was sitting there. Looking at its left foot that couldn't touch the ground, it seemed to be injured. Meow, meow, are you hurt, meow? The pink girl's friendly attitude made the black cat's guard down. Look, poor kitty. UFFI, who had formed a preliminary friendly relationship with the black cat, picked up the black cat and stretched it in front of Ray Minkai. Who knew? The black cat, which was fine just now, immediately struggled desperately when it saw Ray Minkai. The strength was great. The fierceness of the struggle made UFFI feel unprepared. UFFI, who subconsciously wanted to avoid being hurt, just let go of her hand, and the black cat fell from the air to the ground. Then, the black cat seemed to have seen something terrible. Without looking back, it limped into the bushes next to it. Meow. What's going on? Meow, come back quickly. You're hurt. UFFI, who came back to her senses, quickly chased after the black cat, but was blocked by the dense bushes. Ray Minkai, on the other hand, looked at his shoulder in annoyance. The mysterious white cat appeared. The white cat, who came and went like a ghost, was sitting on Ray Minkai's shoulder. Its blue eyes stared at UFFI, who was looking around the bushes for the black cat, and then turned around and jumped to the ground, disappearing behind the fountain. What should we do? The injured cat is gone? UFFI, who had been looking for it many times without success, returned to Ray Minkai's side with a worried expression. Ray Minkai shook his head and sighed helplessly. Let's look for it together. Really? That's really great. When UFFI heard that Ray Minkai wanted to help, she immediately pulled Ray Minkai's right hand happily and turned to leave. Clang! Suddenly, the sound of a heavy object falling to the ground interrupted UFFI and Ray Minkai's movements. That is, what happened? Ray Minkai followed UFFI's gaze and saw a group of delinquents in unique clothes and outstanding hairstyles surrounding a middle-aged man and beating him up. And next to him, there was a hot dog cart. Scum! Ray Minkai secretly cursed, but found that his right hand was tightly held by UFFI. Looking back, Ray Minkai found that UFFI's eyebrows were gradually filled with anger, as if in the next moment, this seemingly weak girl would rush up and stop everything in front of her. In the next moment, without waiting for UFFI to make a move, a black shadow flew out from the bushes and accurately hit the head of the delinquent leader who was leading the group beating the middle-aged man. Duong, Io, which bastard is it? Come out. See if I don't kill you. The leader of the thugs held his head that was gradually bleeding and shouted loudly, "Okay, then why don't you come and hit me? Scum!" As the bushes were pushed aside by a small hand, a girl with a long ponytail holding a black cat in her arms appeared in front of everyone. Her eyes looked at the middle-aged man who could only lie on the ground begging for mercy for a while, then looked at the delinquents and angrily scolded, "Scum who waste food, parasites of society. Come on, today, let this ant teach you how to behave." Chapter 8. The young girl's reprimand did not make the hoodlums feel any guilt or repentance. Instead, the hoodlums could not help but laugh out loud. "Ha ha, I'm dying of laughter. Who are you? You just a little bean? You actually dare to meddle in my business?" The hoodlums who wantonly hooted and even heavily kicked the middle-aged man a few times to show their might did not stay arrogant for long. The young girl, who was filled with anger, took a step forward with her left foot and rushed to the front of the hoodlum leader in the blink of an eye. She raised her hand into a fist and punched the hoodlum leader's abdomen. Pooh! The hoodlum leader's arrogant laughter came to an abrupt stop, and what occupied his throat was a painful scream and uncontrollable vomiting. "Boss!" The boss was suddenly punched to the ground by the young girl. After a moment of astonishment, the hoodlums suddenly reacted and tacitly used their ultimate skill that never failed: group beating. However, what greeted them was still a replica of the hoodlum leader's ending. The young girl who was being beaten by the hoodlums did not even put down the black cat in her embrace. She just stood there and used her right hand to casually wave her fist a few times. The hoodlums who were beating the middle-aged man were lying on the ground, groaning in pain. The more serious ones were even foaming at the mouth and vomiting all over their body. Humph! No matter which world the hoodlums are from, they are all like this. Scram! The young girl who finished off the hoodlums snorted in disdain and walked to the middle-aged man's side and pulled him up. "Uncle, are you okay?" The middle-aged man's body was either covered in dust or footprints, and his face was green and red, almost covered his entire face. I'm fine. Miss, thank you. It's just that." Although the middle-aged man was very grateful to the young girl for standing up for him, his eyes were still flickering with worry. The young girl knew what the middle-aged man was worried about. As a young girl who had walked in many worlds, she naturally knew that those hoodlums would definitely settle the score with her. The young girl smiled sweetly and said confidently, "Don't worry, Uncle. I promise that these scum will never appear in front of you in the future." Thank you." The young girl's promise did not make the middle-aged man feel relieved. On the contrary, the worry between his brows became even more intense. Seeing this, the young girl did not persuade him anymore. Distance tests a horse's strength, and time reveals a person's heart. Whether or not these hooligans would appear again, time would tell. The young girl rolled her eyes and thought of a way to divert the middle-aged man's attention. "Uncle, is the food you cook good? Can you make a serving for me to try? How about you take it as my fee?" The middle-aged man, who was deeply worried about his future, finally reacted when the young girl called out to him. Okay. Miss, wait a moment. I'll do it right away." At this time, two figures also appeared next to the hot dog mobile stall. The man with the silver mask smiled. "Hello, the shop owner. Why don't we make 2 extra servings?" "Okay. Wait a moment." As the process of making food progressed, the middle-aged man's attention gradually focused on the work in his hands and did not notice the changes in his surroundings. "Hello, I'm UFFI. You were amazing just now." Beside the silver-masked man, the pink-haired girl took a step forward and took the initiative to express her goodwill to the ponytailed girl. Mimi, that was just a small matter." It seemed that because she was hungry, the ponytailed girl reluctantly moved her gaze away from the fragrant food and fell on the pink-haired girl who was expressing her goodwill. "Small matter?" UFFI blinked. Her gaze shifted to the hooligans who were still lying on the ground moaning, and said with some disbelief, "But in my impression, not many girls can take care of 5 or 6 hooligans in a few seconds." Mimi waved her hand and replied indifferently, "It's just a small matter, a small matter. Compared to the hooligans I've seen, These are just scum, weaklings, maggots, and rotten meat. Huh. UFFI looked at the girl whose attention was almost entirely on the food and suddenly laughed. What are you laughing at? Himimi blinked her eyes and lowered her head to look at herself, as well as the little black cat in her arms. My clothes are torn? Or this kitten? No. I just feel that you're so straightforward. UFFI repeatedly denied that Himimi's clothes were not torn and that the black cat in her arms was not strange, and said, "Just now I wanted to help this cat bandage its wound, but I didn't expect it to suddenly run into the bushes and let you find it." Oh, Himimi blinked doubtfully and looked down at the black cat in her arms. "Hey, kitten, I was kind enough to help you bandage your wound. Why did you run away?" Meow. The black cat in her arms looked up at Himimi and meowed softly. There's something scary staring at you? Where? Himimi seemed to be able to understand the black cat's words and looked around and unexpectedly attracted UFFI's surprise again. How? No. I just feel that Himimi, you're amazing. You seem to be able to communicate with cats? Is that so? Himimi rolled her eyes, held the black cat with both hands, and smiled. Since I was young, I've always treated them as my friends. Naturally, I can understand their words. Don't you think so? Kitten. Meow. While the two girls were talking, the middle-aged man quickly made 3 hot dogs and handed them to the silent silver-masked man, Lei Minkai, who was standing at the side. Thank you. Lei Minkai turned around and looked at the thugs, then said to the middle-aged man in a low voice, "Those thugs won't come looking for trouble with you anymore. After all, they can't even protect themselves now." Is that so? The middle-aged man was still thinking about whether to lie low for a while. If you don't believe me, wait a few days and see. Lei Minkai smiled mysteriously, took 3 hot dog buns, and walked towards the 2 girls who were talking enthusiastically. Come, 2 beautiful ladies, please. Lei Minkai handed the hot dogs to UFFI and Himimi. Thank you. UFFI elegantly took the hot dog, but did not eat it immediately. Instead, she focused on Himimi. Unexpectedly, Himimi's eyes stared at the mask on Lei Minkai's face for a while and secretly muttered, "TSK, it's another masked man. And is it not to your taste?" Lei Minkai asked with some doubts. "No, thank you." Himimi shook her head and raised her hand to take the hot dog. "All right, why don't we sit there?" UFFI suddenly suggested. Suddenly, Himimi's expression froze, and a golden light flashed under her eyes, and she turned her head to look at the other side of the city. At the same time, a faint pressure emanated from her body without any warning. Lei Minkai frowned and subconsciously stepped in front of UFFI. But Himimi did not care about Lei Minkai's actions, and instead looked down at the black cat in her arms, and said with some pity, "Kitty, good. Now I have to go somewhere. If there's a chance in the future, let's play together." Meow. The black cat meowed obediently. UFFI, I'll leave this cat to you. Himimi did not wait for Lei Minkai to react, and stuffed the black cat into his arms, and turned to run. In the blink of an eye, the girl with a single ponytail had disappeared into the bushes, and there was no trace of her. What a strange girl. Lei Minkai's eyebrows were tightly knitted together. To say that Himimi was weak, but she was so strong that even Lei Minkai himself was afraid of her strength. Especially the pressure that suddenly erupted from her body. It was a pressure that even the Emperor of the Holy Britannia Empire, who occupied 1/3 of the world, could not compare to. "Okay, will we be able to see her again? I think we can make friends with her." UFFI took the black cat from Lei Minkai's arms and looked regretfully in the direction Himimi disappeared. In the conversation just now, UFFI felt a straightforwardness from Himimi that she did not have, and the free wind that surrounded her. This made UFFI, who is envied by thousands of girls as a princess, very envious. "We will probably meet again." Lei Minkai's gaze became more and more serious. For some reason, after meeting the mysterious girl Himimi, Lei Minkai's heart had an unerasable and unstoppable feeling of danger. This made Lei Minkai subconsciously tense his body, and his spirit became more and more nervous. But why is this? Ray Minkai still could not understand the truth behind these phenomena and could not guess. Compared to the serious Ray Minkai, UFFI was much more cheerful. She looked left and right with the hot dog in her hand, and then looked up at the hot dog in Ray Minkai's hand. After a moment of hesitation, she bit her lips and bravely asked, "Kay, how do I eat this?" Ray Minkai was stunned when he heard this. Ray Minkai, who almost did not understand the situation, looked at UFFI's confused face and suddenly could not help but laugh. What are you laughing at? Kay. Hearing Ray Minkai's laughter, UFFI suddenly looked like she wanted to explode, but desperately endured and maintained the demeanor of a lady. "Look, that's it. Just open your mouth and bite it down." Ray Minkai did not excessively tease UFFI, and after demonstrating how to eat the hot dog bun, he motioned for UFFI to follow. UFFI hesitantly looked at the hot dog bun in Ray Minkai's hand, and then looked at the hot dog bun in her hand, carefully opened her mouth, and gently bit off a small piece of the hot dog bun. "How is it? Is it good?" Ray Minkai nodded encouragingly, trying to guide UFFI to tell him her experience. "Well, it's delicious. It's a taste I have never tasted before." UFFI gently chewed for a while and gave an answer. "That's good. I hope you like this taste." Meow. At this time, the black cat in UFFI's arms softly called out, looking like it also wanted to eat a hot dog. "Okay, Meow. Wait until we sit down over there. I'll let you eat it, Meow." Looking at the black cat's greedy look, UFFI could not help but laugh. So, the two looked at each other, smiled, and walked to the other side. Chapter 9. Although the concession was large, Ray Minkai and UFFI soon finished walking hand in hand. At this time, the sun was already setting in the west. "I'm so happy today. Not only did I meet you, Kay, but I also met him Mimi." UFFI's carefree smile never stopped. Meow, as if responding to UFFI's words. The black cat in her arms also meowed softly. UFFI let out a chuckle, raised the black cat with both hands, looked at it, and said, "Of course. Thank you, Kitty, for always being with me." Meow. The black cat meowed obediently. "It looks like it's almost time. UFFI, do you have any other places you want to go?" Ray Minkai looked up at the sun gradually disappearing into the horizon, then looked back at UFFI and asked, "Yes, I still have a place I want to go." For some reason, UFFI's expression suddenly became serious. It was as if even if she would be rejected by Ray Minkai in the next moment, she would still go to the place she wanted to go. Where? Ray Minkai frowned. He felt that the next place UFFI wanted to go might not be a good place for her. "Shinjuku. I want to go to Shinjuku. Kay, are you willing to take me there?" The girl's voice was sonorous and powerful. It seemed so firm. Looking at UFFI's firm eyes, Ray Minkai closed his eyes. After a moment of silence, he chuckled, bowed to UFFI, and said, "Yes, Your Royal Highness, as you wish. But you must listen to my command." After getting Ray Minkai's approval, UFFI smiled softly, gently pulled up the corner of her skirt with her right hand, and gave a ladle-like salute to Ray Minkai in return. "Understood. My knight, I'll leave everything to you." Although Ray Minkai came to District 11 not long ago, for some reason, he still found the map he could find and memorized it. Therefore, even though like UFFI, Ray Minkai, who had just arrived in District 11, still took UFFI through the concession and came to Shinjuku. As soon as he walked out of the clean and prosperous concession, everything before his eyes suddenly became dilapidated, desolate, and dead silent. Seeing the sudden change in front of her, the smile on UFFI's face gradually faded and was replaced by a serious and doubtful expression. "Do you find it unacceptable?" Ray Minkai, who had participated in the fierce battle in Shinjuku, was naturally familiar with the area that had been ravaged by war not long ago. Somewhere in this area, there were still traces of Ray Minkai driving the Lancelot across the battlefield. Yes, why did it become like this? UFFI turned her head and looked around. She frowned and thought. There was understanding and doubt between her eyebrows. War. No matter where it is, as long as the fire of war is ignited, it will become like this. Ray Minkai stood in front of a broken wall and raised his hand to touch the huge bullet holes left on it. Judging from the size of the bullet holes, it should be traces left by the guns equipped by Sunderland. And at the root of this broken wall, there was a dark brown mark. UFFI, who stood next to Ray Minkai, naturally followed Ray Minkai's gaze and noticed the dark brown mark. UFFI, who didn't react at first, finally figured out the true nature of the dark brown mark and couldn't help but take a few steps back. This is blood left by humans? Yes. Ray Minkai's silver mask reflected the afterglow of the setting sun. His voice calmly sounded. Not long ago, when His Highness the Third Prince Clovis led his troops into Shinjuku to encircle and suppress the terrorists who seized the prohibited weapons, the traces of battle were left behind. Ray Minkai retracted his right hand. With his back facing the sun, he looked at UFFI's face. She couldn't believe that the area in front of her was the ruins where countless lives were buried. Although I don't know why you came to Shinjuku, UFFI, the area in front of you is just like what you saw, a city destroyed by war. But just when UFFI wanted to argue with Ray Minkai, a loud sound suddenly resounded through the sky. The two of them hurriedly looked back and saw a black mushroom cloud slowly rising from a dilapidated baseball field in the afterglow of the setting sun. That is... Ray Minkai's ears twitched. From the faint sound, he could tell that it was the sound made by the humanoid mobile weapon Nightmare during battle. Immediately after, a huge transport vehicle came from afar and steadily stopped beside Ray Minkai and UFFI. Hey, Kay, you're really running all over the place. You made us look for you for the whole day. The driver was Royd. He opened the door and waved towards Ray Minkai and UFFI. Quickly come up. We don't need to get involved in this mess. It's just an internal strife in the Pure Blood faction. Pure Blood faction? UFFI cried out in surprise. Ray Minkai took a deep look at the gradually dissipating mushroom cloud, then turned around to look at Royd. The corner of his mouth slightly raised as he said, Royd, don't you think this is a good opportunity? Oh, when Royd heard this, he let out a long sigh. Then his eyes slightly narrowed as he looked at Ray Minkai in amazement. Kay, you've been lying in the hospital for a few days, yet you still know that we have new things here? It's just that my intuition is a bit sharper. Ray Minkai's face was filled with a confident smile. Boom! Under the siege of Fort Sunderland, the Sunderland that was trapped in the encirclement kept retreating. It was full of openings, and even the gun in its hand was shot to the ground. It could only watch as the enemy used the knight's gun to penetrate it. Damn it, for people are attacking together. Despicable scum. The besieged Sunderland was piloted by Jeremiah. Not long ago, he originally received information from the command center about Zero that made him lose face. However, when he arrived at the location indicated by the information, he found out that it was all a scam. The purpose was to lure him, who was blinded by hatred, to this secluded place, and then kill him. Don't worry, Jeremiah, your death will only become a heroic legend. It will not bring shame to your family. The Sunderland, that was obviously the leader, held the knight's gun and unceremoniously stabbed at the cockpit of Jeremiah Sunderland. Jeremiah gritted his teeth and controlled his body to raise its left hand. The electroshock device that popped up from the arm blocked the knight's gun from the enemy, former colleague, and current enemy, Cherwell. However, although the knight's gun that was aimed at the cockpit was blocked, in the next moment, another knight's gun came from another Sunderland and caused Jeremiah's Sunderland to be fixed in place. The long knight's gun directly pierced through the Sunderland's left leg and nailed it to the ground. Jeremiah, who was forced into a corner, still could not believe that he was forced into a dead end by his colleague. Moreover, from the current situation, what awaited him was definitely a dead end. Are you serious? Are you really going to kill me? Cherwell. Jeremiah, who was unwilling to die, roared. However, as the mastermind of this operation, Cherwell was unmoved. His anger was burning fiercely. "Shut up, Orange. Why do we exist? You are an existence that brings shame to the pure-blood faction. For the royal family." Cherwell roared. Uchel Britannia. Under the knight's roar, the Sunderland that surrounded Jeremiah from all sides raised their knights' long guns and activated their high-speed driving wheels at full speed. They swore that they would kill this sinner that brought shame to the pure-blood faction, Jeremiah, from this world. At this critical moment, Jeremiah could not move and could only watch as the Grim Reaper swung its scythe at him in despair. Suddenly, a black shadow broke through the air and attacked from above. Without any warning, it destroyed the road in front of Cherwell Sunderland. Boom! Amidst the dust, the four Sunderlands, including Cherwell's, stopped moving and looked at the top of the baseball field. The White Knight, Lancelot, was standing there. Lancelot's left hand moved slightly, and the hook that stopped Cherwell's and the other's killing blow was retracted. Friendly fire. This is too ugly. Is this how the pureblood faction does things? Raymond Kai's mocking voice rang clearly in everyone's ears through the communication channel. That's the guide weapon driven by the masked man, Lancelot. Jeremiah, who was saved from death's door, looked at Lancelot in shock. Memories of the conflict between him and his subordinates because of the driver of the vehicle flashed through his mind. What's the purpose of the special dispatch? Looking at the unclear Lancelot, Cherwell had to treat him with caution. No, it's nothing special. I just wanted to join in the fun. Raymond Kai's eyes flashed. Lancelot suddenly jumped up from the ground. At the same time, the two laser vibrating swords that were temporarily installed on the back of the scaffold moved down and popped out into Lancelot's hands. MSV. It can actually be used in combat. Cherwell was shocked to see the two swords in Lancelot's hands turn from white to red. In the next second, Cherwell activated it without hesitation. His accomplices followed closely behind. Hook claws. The hook claws installed on Sunderland's shoulders shot out continuously, straight at Lancelot, who jumped into the air and was rapidly descending towards the ground. However, under Raymond Kai's control, the straight falling Lancelot did something that shocked Cherwell and the others. Turn around, swing the sword. Turn to the side, slash. The series of actions that dazzled everyone, and at the same time, cut off all four Sunderland's hook claws. In the blink of an eye, the morale of Cherwell and the others was crushed. Is this saving me? The nameless masked man, Jeremiah, who had lost his ability to fight, could only watch everything unfold in front of him. Chapter 10. Lancelot landed in front of the Sunderland that Jeremiah was piloting. Not far away, one of the Sunderland that had participated in the attack on Jeremiah took advantage of the fact that Lancelot had not regained his footing to unleash its full power. The knight's gun was pointed at Lancelot. Lancelot raised his left arm and deflected the incoming knight's gun. At the same time, Raymond Kai moved his hands, and Lancelot kicked out with his right leg towards the Sunderland that had launched the sneak attack. Boom! With the sound of metal clashing, Sunderland fell to the ground with a loud bang. Immediately after, another Sunderland's attack came. Just like the Sunderland that had launched the sneak attack earlier, the knight's gun was pointed at Lancelot as he regained his footing. However, this time, Lancelot only swung the vibrating laser sword in his left hand to parry the incoming knight's gun. Virum, with a deafening roar. Not only was the Sunderland's knight's gun cut in half by Lancelot's vibrating laser sword, but its right arm was also chopped off by another vibrating laser sword. Cherwell, who had moved to Jeremiah's right, could not accept the fact that his attack was easily neutralized by Lancelot. Hence, he gritted his teeth and roared, "Even if this is the case, I will still kill Orange." The high-speed driving wheels roared, and a cold light flashed across the knight's gun's tip. Jeremiah was once again in a desperate situation. The next second, his savior appeared again. This time, the one who saved Jeremiah was Veretta New. Veretta New originally wanted to contact Jeremiah to discuss the phenomenon of memory loss. She did not expect to stumble upon an internal conflict. Now that she had saved Jeremiah, She was surprised to find that someone was one step ahead of her and had stopped the internal conflict from fermenting. "Okay, yo, Beretta, you're just in time. I'll leave Jeremiah to you. I'll take care of the rest." When Ray Minkai realized that it was Veretta who had arrived, he was slightly surprised and handed the task of protecting Jeremiah to Veretta. Then Lancelot raised his sword and pointed at the Sunderland that Cherwell was piloting. Ray Minkai's voice came from the cockpit. "Do you want another round? I'm not going to continue. After all, this is a good opportunity for Lancelot to collect battle data." Ray Minkai's words made Cherwell furious. However, he did not curse because of this. Instead, he calmly asked his teammates to back down. This scene made Ray Minkai slightly cautious. Based on the relentless attacks from before, Cherwell was not the kind of person who would give up easily. "I'm going to use the Chaos Thunderbolt." As the magazine on Sunderland's left thigh opened, a cylindrical-shaped thunderbolt was caught in Sunderland's hand. Ray Minkai's face suddenly became serious. The Chaos Thunderbolt was a type of wide-area armor-piercing projectile known as the Self-Forged Fragmentation Projectile, SFF. Although its armor-piercing ability was only 100 to 200 millimeters, due to the large number of projectiles and the large area that it covered, it was a great threat to the body. As soon as he saw the Chaos Thunderbolt, Ray Minkai began to plan. "Please stop." At this moment, a figure rushed out from the passageway, not far away. At the same time, he shouted for everyone to stop. Her appearance made Ray Minkai stunned. However, there was no time for Ray Minkai to warn her to leave immediately. The Chaos Thunderbolt was already activated by Cherwell and thrown into the air. Bang! With a soft sound, the Chaos Thunderbolt's main projectile was launched. Virum! In the next second, the sound of the bullet exploding echoed throughout the entire baseball field. Tisk! Ray Minkai did not hesitate as he controlled Lancelot's arms and activated the energy light shield. Pa 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 pa. In the blink of an eye, countless bullets shot out for the Chaos Thunderbolt's main projectile completely submerged the three Nightmare, including Lancelot. Of course, the figure that rushed into the battlefield was also protected by Lancelot. Pa 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 pa. With the explosion of the roaring bullets, the energy light shield's energy consumption increased. In the roar of the bullets colliding with the energy light shield, a very small number of bullets were not blocked by the energy light shield and directly hit the ground. There were even 1 or 2 bullets that shattered Lancelot's foot equipment. In the midst of the explosion, Lei Minkai suddenly heard a sound that shouldn't have been there. Subconsciously, Lei Minkai looked at the screen on the right and suddenly saw that the edge of the figure's skirt had been swept away by the flying debris, tearing a large piece of it. At this moment, Lei Minkai's mind exploded with a bang. Lancelot, who was holding the energy light shield, suddenly stood up. Then, to everyone's surprise, he jumped on the spot and faced the Chaos Thunderbolt that was hovering in the air and wreaking havoc below. Pa 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 pa. As Lancelot approached, the penetrating power of the bullets increased. The roar of the bullets ravaged everyone's ears. "Kay, what the hell do you want to do?" Veretta looked in surprise at Lancelot, who dared to face the Chaos Thunderbolt head-on. "Madman." In Lancelot's cockpit, the White Cat once again appeared on Ray Minkai's right-hand side. Ray Minkai did not respond to the White Cat, but focused on controlling Lancelot. Boom! The energy light shield and the Chaos Thunderbolt collided. Immediately afterward, Lancelot waved his left arm and forcefully used the energy light shield as a clapper and slapped the Chaos Thunderbolt away in one breath. What? Impossible! Cherwell was about to go crazy. Not only was the Chaos Thunderbolt's attack blocked by Lancelot, but it was also unexpectedly slapped away by Lancelot. He could only watch as the Chaos Thunderbolt, after bursting out the last wave of bullets, fell futilely into the audience seats in the distance. As the dust splashed, the whole scene was dead silent. The wind splashed. Euphemia, who had just escaped death, took a deep look at Lancelot. She then walked to the center of the field with a resolute look in her eyes. She then shouted loudly, "Both sides, put down your weapons. In my name, I am Euphemia Libertania." the third princess of Britannia. I am in command here. Both sides stand down. The words of the young girl with a serious expression shocked everyone. For a moment, no one was able to react. This time, Cherwell could no longer continue to insist on killing Jeremiah. As the backbone of the pure-blood faction, when faced with Euphemia Britannia, who was a member of the royal family, he finally chose to lower his crazy head. He really deserves to die 1,000 times. In the midst of the confession, all the Sunderland, including Cherwell, Jeremiah, and Veretta, knelt down in front of UFFI. The third princess, Euphemia Britannia? I really didn't expect it. In Lancelot's cockpit, Ray Minkai was also in disbelief at everything in front of him. Didn't expect it? You have to make up for the sins you have committed. One day, you'll remember. Kai. The white cat took a deep look at UFFI on the screen, then gradually disappeared. At the exit of the passage, Royd and Cethel also witnessed everything that happened. Cethel looked at the girl who stopped the battle between the humanoid weapons in surprise. Royd, you already knew. When we were following Kay and the others on the road, you already knew, right? Royd, who was half leaning on the wall, had his usual cynical smile on his face. He nodded and said playfully, yes. Because I'm a student, I didn't appear in front of the public too much. Then, Royd changed his posture to make himself more comfortable and continued, I just didn't expect our Knight K's luck with women to be so strong. Not long ago, he hooked up with a female knight, and now he hooked up with the third princess. It's really enviable. On the other side, Royd was amazed. In the middle of the field, Ray Minkai opened Lancelot's cockpit, landed on the ground, and walked towards UFFI. He sighed softly, looked at UFFI, and said, I didn't expect you to be the third princess. So, your previous lie was to hide your identity and secretly visit the people. Yes. Sorry. I lied to you. UFFI nodded. No. Ray Minkai shook his head and saluted UFFI with a knight's salute. The Empire's specially sent pilot from the Guide Technology Department, Knight K, greets Your Highness the third princess. K, please get up. I have a request. I don't know if you're willing to listen. UFFI supported Ray Minkai and said solemnly, Please speak. Ray Minkai responded in a neither servile nor overbearing manner. I lost my brother Clovis, and the people here also lost their respective loved ones. In order to create a world that no longer loses important people, can you lend me a hand? The third princess of the Britannia Empire, Euphemia Britannia, sincerely made a request to Ray Minkai. As the target of the request, Ray Minkai was silent. The moment the last ray of the setting sun disappeared into the horizon, the moment the silver mask no longer refracted the afterglow, the masked knight responded firmly, Your Highness, please allow me to refuse. The next day, the transport plane carrying the new governor of District 11, Cornelia Li Britannia, and her subordinates slowly landed on the runway of the military base in the concession. As the deputy governor, Euphemia naturally had to personally greet them. However, the moment Cornelia stepped off the transport plane, she immediately noticed that her sister's eyebrows were occupied by a sense of worry. Euphemia, what's wrong? Is the affairs of District 11 troubling you? UFFI was shocked and shook her head repeatedly. No, sister. I'm just thinking about some things. I'm very sorry. Cornelia looked at her sister, who was a little forced, and said softly, I've heard about it. Euphemia, don't force yourself. Yes, sister. Cornelia smiled and said seriously, From now on, in public, you should call me Governor. Deputy Governor Euphemia. Yes, Governor. Euphemia responded. From this moment on, District 11, which had just lost its governor, once again welcomed a new governor. Chapter 11. It was nighttime. After entering the final operating data into the computer, Ray Minkai's work came to an end. Hey, thank you for your hard work. When Cecil, who was holding a pile of documents, walked over from the side, he noticed that Ray Minkai was standing up from his seat. No, it's my job. This is what I should do. Lei Mingkai shook his head and didn't care that it was already 11 o'clock at night. Yes, after all, Lancelot is the first body to use the MSV laser vibration sword. Only you know how good it is. So, I can only rely on you. With his hands in his pockets, Royd staggered to Ray Mingkai's side and looked down at the data displayed on the computer screen. The result is not bad. The MSV configuration is an excellent choice for Lancelot. Royd was very satisfied with the data obtained when Lancelot used the MSV in the Pure Blood faction's internal strife. After looking for a while, Royd's eyes slowly turned and finally fell on Ray Mingkai. Moreover, Royd's eyes quietly lit up with a playful light. I say, Kay, don't you think your luck with women is a bit strong recently? First, it was the beautiful female knight, then the noble royal highness. TSK, your luck is enviable. Ray Mingkai shook his head. It's just a coincidence. There's no need to be so serious. Royd, no, I'm not serious. When Royd saw that Ray Mingkai denied it, he waved his hand and took a few steps back. He grabbed Cecil, who was about to put the documents on the table, and forced Cecil to stand on the side of the table. Royd then made a knight salute to Cecil and said with a serious expression, Your Royal Highness, please allow me to refuse. Royd, what are you doing? After being ambushed by Royd, Sahil quickly moved to the side and threw the document at Royd. Seeing this, Lei Mingkai helplessly shook his head. Of course, he knew that Royd had done this just now to recreate the scene where he had heartlessly rejected the invitation from the third princess after the internal strife in the Pure Blood sect. Although I was very surprised when I saw that UK had rejected the third princess. But after I came back, I thought it through. After Royd nimbly dodged Sahil's document attack, he took a few steps forward and stood beside Lei Mingkai. With a playful smile, he continued, Don't worry about me. Our knight, Kay, probably doesn't want to be involved in those troublesome matters at this time. That's why I heartlessly rejected the invitation of the third princess. Just because of that. Sahil, who was looking at the documents scattered all over the floor in distress, looked at Ray Mingkai in surprise when he heard Royd's words. Ray Mingkai was silent for a moment, then slowly nodded. Maybe, but that's not the main reason. Royd, you should know what kind of person His Majesty the Emperor of Britannia is, right? The smile on Royd's face suddenly disappeared, and he looked at Ray Mingkai calmly. Is that so? And then, Ray Mingkai shook his head gently. This world is not the world that Her Royal Highness the Third Princess expects. The world that Her Highness the Empress hopes for will only exist in her imagination. Ray Mingkai paused and said in a deep voice, The world is cruel. At the same time, in the governor's palace, two women with very similar faces and a difference of about 10 years in age were sitting in front of a dressing table, carefully combing their soft and beautiful long hair. The older woman held a comb in her hand and gently combed the younger woman's beautiful pink hair. Her every move was full of doting. UFFI, we haven't seen each other for a while, right? The older woman's face showed a nostalgic look. The most recent time he had spent combing his sister's hair was a year ago. In the past year, in order to conquer the territory of the Britannia Empire and establish one digital colony after another, she had been away from her country and her sister for a full year. Royal sister, you haven't combed UFFI's hair for a long time? Euphemia sat elegantly in front of the dressing table, looked at her royal sister Cornelia's reflection in the mirror, and smiled slightly. On her face, the same nostalgic look as Cornelia appeared. Yes, it's only been a year. Even though we had video calls in between, I still felt that time passed really quickly. UFFI, you should be 16 years old today. Cornelia gently combed Euphemia's hair with the comb in her hand. Euphemia was stunned and looked at Cornelia's reflection in the mirror with some confusion. Royal sister, what are you talking about? I'm indeed 16 years old this year. Looking at the little nervousness on Euphemia's face, Cornelia smiled dotingly, stopped combing her hair, and put the comb on the dressing table. Then, Cornelia stood beside Euphemia, raised her hand, and gently stroked Euphemia's face, and said softly, Yes, UFFI has reached the age to choose a knight. Euphemia suddenly looked at her sister in surprise. She never thought that Cornelia would bring up the issue of knight at this time. Royal sister, what are you talking about? I don't need a knight right now. Besides, you didn't choose a knight either, right? Cornelia looked at the flustered Euphemia and suddenly laughed. UFFI, do I still need a knight now? Do you know what the enemy calls me? Which? Euphemia shook her head and firmly denied. No, Royal sister is not a witch. Cornelia gently smiled, raised her hand, and stroked Euphemia's cheek. UFFI, it's okay. This is just what the loser calls me. This is also good. If a title can make those incompetent people willingly accept the rule of the Britannia Empire, I'm willing to accept a few more titles. But, Euphemia just wanted to refute, but Cornelia stretched out her finger and pressed on her lips. Okay. Now, we need to discuss who will be the knight of the Britannia Empire's third princess. About me, we could talk about it later. Euphemia's lips moved, but she remained silent. Cornelia, who had doted on Euphemia since she was a child, saw Euphemia's expression at this moment and knew that she had something on her mind and didn't take her words to heart. And the reason, Cornelia also knew. Cornelia took a step forward and hugged Euphemia from behind. She pressed her face against Euphemia's side and asked softly, UFFI, are you still thinking about that dream? Dream? Euphemia's eyes suddenly lit up, but it quickly dimmed. After a moment of silence, Euphemia gently shook her head and firmly said, No, Royal sister, that's not a dream. Not a dream, right? Cornelia looked at Euphemia's stubborn face, sighed, and told her what she knew. UFFI, ever since I heard you talk about that dream, I sent people to the place you mentioned to investigate. There have never been any giant white lions here, nor have there been any terrorist attacks. As she spoke, Cornelia raised her head and looked at Euphemia's reflection in the mirror. And you didn't leave the palace on a whim one day to play in the suburbs. From the beginning to the end, you stayed in the palace and received etiquette lessons from Countess Selina. Hearing her sister's words, Euphemia shook her head and persisted in her thoughts. No, Royal sister, that's real. The white lion does exist, and the lion knight also exists. Am I right? UFFI, you've been insisting on this for more than 2 years. From the reflection in the mirror, Euphemia saw her sister Cornelia's irrefutable gaze. Euphemia, who was unwilling to accept the so-called knight's arrangement, clenched her fists and suddenly made up her mind. She opened the drawer of the dressing table and took out a palm-sized golden lion head medallion with 2 resplendent rubies as the eyes. Royal sister, this is what was left in my arms at that time. So, the white lion does exist. The lion knight who saved me from the terrorist attack definitely exists. Euphemia's voice was filled with undeniable determination. Her voice was firm as she declared to her sister Cornelia, I believe it's because of the existence of this scarlet-eyed golden lion head medallion that I have the opportunity to meet the lion knight again. Cornelia looked at the scarlet-eyed golden lion head medallion in the palm of Euphemia's hand in surprise. As a close sister, this was the first time she realized that Euphemia would hide something from her. UFFI, are you serious? This is not a fairy tale world. Cornelia looked at the scarlet-eyed golden lion head medallion, then stared at Euphemia's eyes for a long time. Yes, Royal sister, if I have to choose my knight, then, in this world, only one person can be my knight. The third princess's voice was so firm and irrefutable. Because 2 years ago, my life was saved by the Lion Knight from the terrorist attack. Chapter 12. Woo woo woo. The siren's shrill screeching filled the air above the encampment, causing everyone's faces to tense up. What's the situation? Royd put away his usual playful attitude and asked with a serious expression. No, we don't know the situation yet. But the only thing we know is that during the test start, Lancelot's cherry stone suddenly lost all its activity for some reason, which almost caused Lancelot's energy system to collapse. There was a thin layer of sweat on Cecil's forehead. The sudden alarm had given her a fright. Fortunately, the moment before Lancelot's energy system collapsed, it suddenly lost all its activity and fell into silence. From the results, as long as the cherry stone that lost its activity was replaced, it would be fine. But from a research point of view, why did the cherry stone suddenly lose its activity? Would this strange situation continue to reappear at some point in the future after the replacement? At that time, it wouldn't be as simple as Lancelot being destroyed in battle. Click! At this time, Lancelot's cockpit opened. Ray Minkai, who was also sweating profusely, took a deep breath and jumped onto the elevator. Okay, what's the situation? Did you find anything wrong just now? It was related to the future of Lancelot, so Roy took this sudden incident seriously. Ray Minkai shook his head. I'm not too sure, but the only thing I'm sure of is that after the cherry stone is replaced, this problem shouldn't happen again. It won't. Roy paused and looked at Ray Minkai with some doubts. Really? Ray Minkai spread out his hands and said helplessly, I'm not too sure. It's just my intuition. To be on the safe side, I hope Roy can carefully check Lancelot again. Roy didn't expect Ray Minkai to give an answer that wasn't an answer. He sighed helplessly and waved his hand. Yes, yes. That was the only way. Why would something like this happen at such a critical juncture? Looking at Roy's dejected look, Ray Minkai's heart skipped a beat. Roy, are you on the move again? Roy let out a long sigh and shouted while covering his face with both hands. Her Royal Highness Cornelia has arrived in Area 11. Next, she would definitely lead her troops to clear out the surrounding rebels. Therefore, this is undoubtedly an excellent opportunity for the Special Forces to engage in combat. At this point, Roy looked at Sahil on the verge of tears and sighed. However, right now, we can only perform a major overhaul on Lancelot. In that case, we might not be able to participate in the next few operations. In response, Ray Minkai could only continue to spread his hands. That's the only way. Roy, whose mood had suffered a blow, suddenly looked at Ray Minkai with some disdain and waved his hand at him. "Okay, you're not needed here for the time being. Go to the side and cool off." Ray Minkai nodded, simply turned around, and left without any pretense. It wasn't until Ray Minkai's figure disappeared in the passage that Roy rushed to Sahil's side and stared at Sahil. "Roy!" Sahil looked at Roy, who suddenly stuck close to him with some fear. "Sahil!" Roy shouted. "Yes, I'm here." "Roy!" Sahil responded quickly. "Sahil, we have to speed up the overhaul on Lancelot." Roy took Sahil's hands and said with a trembling voice, "Yes, now immediately." Sahil nodded repeatedly. Roy immediately put down his hands, turned around, opened his arms, and shouted, "In order to catch up with the actual combat opportunity, I've decided, from today onwards, I'll work overtime and complete the overhaul of Lancelot in the shortest time possible." Yes, with an order, the entire special force became busy. However, a certain someone was an exception. However, he was not relaxed. Ray Minkai returned to his room with a calm expression. After carefully closing the door, he pulled out a chair, sat down, and immediately looked at the table in front of him. There, a white cat was lying lazily on it. "Did you cause the phenomenon on Lancelot just now?" Ray Minkai stared at the white cat and asked. "Meow." The white cat let out a comfortable burp and lazily flipped over before slowly saying, "That's right, I'm sorry. Yes, it's just absorbing the energy needed for the activity. There's nothing to be surprised about." The white cat's indifferent attitude made Ray Minkai frown. After he raised his hand and took off his mask, he faced the white cat with his original appearance and asked, "Energy? Absorb? You're not a creature." As soon as he said that, Ray Minkai realized that the white cat in front of him had appeared around him mysteriously from the beginning to the end. It had never been discovered by others. It had never attracted the attention of others. It just came softly. It left softly. From the beginning to the end, it was only Ray Minkai himself who noticed this mysterious white cat. You could be that your ghost. Unexpectedly, as soon as Ray Minkai said that, the white cat immediately jumped up from the table. Nonsense. I'm not those lying ghosts. The fur on the white cat's body stood up slightly. Its sharp teeth were also exposed at this moment. The white cat let out a low whimper from its throat. Woo. You. Not only have you forgotten who you are, you've even forgotten my existence. Who am I? Ray Minkai asked back. Looking at the confused Lei Minkai, the fluffy fur on the white cat's body immediately softened, and the entire cat seemed to be in a slump. Who the hell are you? Think about it yourself. The white cat snorted coldly, turned around and walked to the side of the table, then stopped and looked back at Ray Minkai. I won't touch those cherry stones in the near future, but if you still use your power like before, then you'd better be mentally prepared. After that, the white cat jumped lightly and disappeared into the shadows of the room. Just like Royd's whining, after a short period of preparation, Cornelia led the knight under her command and launched an attack on all the rebel guerrilla strongholds that had been investigated clearly. Looking at the rebel army that was annihilated in an instant under the attack of the knight regiment led by Cornelia, Royd became more and more diligent and more immersed in the maintenance of Lancelot. Because if this continues, I'm afraid there won't be a chance for actual combat in District 11. Regarding Royd's opinion, Ray Minkai only twitched the corner of his mouth and did not say anything. In Ray Minkai's view, under the current offensive, there was no doubt that a fact was exposed. Zero was not among the rebel army. Or, Zero was not a member of the rebel army from the beginning. Or, Zero was not a rebel at all. Guesses were guesses. Ray Minkai would not rashly say these unfounded guesses that were just his personal intuition. Just when Ray Minkai was idle because of Lancelot, an order suddenly came to the special mission station. It was an order from Her Royal Highness, the Third Princess. Ray Minkai was asked to go to the government office immediately to meet Her Royal Highness, the Third Princess. Faced with this order, Royd, who was busy taking a break, took the order document from the servant and stuffed it into Ray Minkai's arms before he could react. Just right. Just right. Now the special mission station is busy. As the only idle person here, you should find something to do immediately. In this way, Ray Minkai was pushed into the car by Royd to the government office. Half an hour later, Ray Minkai saw Euphemia in a formal suit in the deputy governor's office in the government office. Yesterday's long hair that was draped over her shoulders was tied into a high ponytail with a gorgeous hairband. The tight-fitting silk clothes outlined Euphemia's youthful and beautiful figure clearly. We meet again, Kay. Her Royal Highness the Third Princess stood up from her seat and showed a kind smile to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai bowed his head, clenched his right fist, held it flat in front of his chest, and half-knelt in front of Euphemia. Knight Kay greets Her Royal Highness the Third Princess. Ray Minkai's politeness made Euphemia reveal a trace of gloominess, but soon she cheered up again. Kay, I asked you to come today because I have a request. Euphemia walked around the desk and came in front of Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai did not raise his head, nor did he stand up. He still maintained the posture of a knight. Yes, please tell me, Your Royal Highness. Euphemia bent down slightly, reached out and held Ray Minkai's right hand and motioned him stand up. Then, Euphemia raised her small face, looked up at Ray Minkai, and smiled. I don't know if Kay can accompany me again today. Go out. Ray Minkai was stunned and asked subconsciously, Your Royal Highness the Second Princess, did Governor Cornelia allow Your Royal Highness to go out? Euphemia's mouth gradually hung a smile. Her beautiful purple eyes narrowed slightly. Yes, Governor Cornelia has given permission. So, can I ask you for a favor today? At this point, Ray Minkai did not insist and gladly accepted the task. However, before that, Euphemia still needed to change out of the gorgeous royal clothes and into civilian clothes before she could go out. While waiting for Euphemia, Ray Minkai, who was standing in the corridor, suddenly felt something nudging his feet. Looking down, he found that it was the black cat that the mysterious girl Mimi gave to Euphemia. Little guy, you already live here? Ray Minkai squatted down and stroked the black cat's head. Meow. The black cat rubbed its head against Ray Minkai's palm in a friendly manner. Allah, Arthas, so you're here. Great. Let's go out together today. Hearing Euphemia's voice, the black cat immediately called out, went around Ray Minkai, and jumped into Euphemia's arms. Your Royal Highness, this is... Ray Minkai looked at the black cat that was lying comfortably in Euphemia's arms and asked, Today, in addition to secretly visiting the civilians, I also want to buy some daily necessities for Arthas. Euphemia smiled sweetly. This, can't you ask someone else to buy it? Facing Ray Minkai's question, Euphemia shook her head firmly. No, this is what Mimi asked me to do. Therefore, I have to do it myself. This is a promise. It's also a responsibility. Looking at the third princess, who was extremely determined, Ray Minkai bowed slightly. I'm very sorry. Your Royal Highness, I misspoke. No, don't mind it. Kay, compared to this, from now on, you should call me like before. After all, if you casually call out my real name outside, it will cause unnecessary trouble. Yes, Your Royal Highness, no, UFFI. Chapter 13. Along the way, Euphemia seemed to have entered the shopping mode of an ordinary girl. While holding the black cat, she pulled Ray Minkai through the downtown area. Fortunately, Euphemia was not like the girls around her, who were carrying large and small bags in their hands, wandering around the shops, and fighting in the bargaining war with the shop assistants. From Euphemia's performance, although she was very interested, she was more interested in finding the Japanese products that the black cat Arthas could use as soon as possible. UFFI, over there. Ray Minkai suddenly stopped and pointed to the other side of the street. UFFI stopped and looked along Ray Minkai's finger. Sure enough, there was a pet shop called Pets Things. Finally found it. Come, let's go. Euphemia cheered a little and pulled Ray Minkai to the pet shop. However, they did not expect that when they just walked to the door of the pet shop, they would bump into a customer coming out from inside. Meow. In a moment of carelessness, the black cat in Euphemia's arms suddenly broke free from Euphemia's left hand. After falling to the ground, it took a few steps back and raised its head to look at the person who bumped into Euphemia and Ray Minkai. Hey, I'm sorry. I didn't notice. When the person was about to apologize, he was surprised to find that the people he bumped into were Euphemia and Ray Minkai, who he met in the park not long ago. It's you guys. It's you. He Mimi. Because Ray Minkai reached out to hold her in time, Euphemia did not fall down. Instead, she pointed at Mimi and exclaimed. When Ray Minkai heard the voice, he took a closer look. Indeed, it was the mysterious girl they had met in the park. We meet again. He Mimi. Euphemia nodded, and a friendly smile hung on the corner of her mouth. Yes, we meet again. It seems that we are fated, right? Little kitty. Mimi nodded at Euphemia, and Ray Minkai bent down and picked up the black cat that came over and smiled. Meow. The black cat seemed to be very happy. Mimi, why are you here? Euphemia looked at Mimi and then looked at the pet shop and asked curiously. I'm here to buy rations. After all, there's still some stray cats in the park. If it's possible, I hope you can feed them while I'm here. As she spoke, Mimi stretched out her hand and scratched the black cat's chin, while the black cat Mimi's eyes squinted its eyes. During the time you were here, Euphemia blinked and raised a question. Don't tell me Mimi, you don't live here? Euphemia's confusion made Mimi laugh. I'm not a resident here. I'm here because I have to deal with some matters. Once I'm done, I naturally have to leave this place. Mimi frankly told Euphemia and Ray Minkai that she was not from District 11, nor was she from Britannia. UFFI, and Miss Mimi, if it's possible, why don't we go over there and continue our chat? If we continue to stand here, it might affect the shop. With Ray Minkai's reminder, the two girls finally realized that they were indeed causing some trouble for the shop by standing and chatting at the pet shop. After Euphemia apologized to the shop owner and bought some daily necessities for the black cat Mimi, The three of them went to an outdoor cafe not far from the pet shop. Himimi asked the waiter to bring a pet food bowl and took out a pack of cat food from her backpack, opened it, and poured it on the pet food bowl and put it on the ground for the black cat Mimi to eat by itself. Mimi really likes small animals. Euphemia looked at Mimi's familiar feeding movements and could not help but praise. Is that so? Mimi thought for a while and suddenly laughed. Maybe it's because I have too many small pets in my house. You know, my mother has a lot of small pets. When I was young, every morning I would wake up to their noise, and I couldn't sleep even if I wanted to. Is that so? If that's the case, your house should be very lively, right? Euphemia suddenly became interested. Probably. If it wasn't because my mother was able to suppress Xiao Lu and the others, I'm afraid that my house would be torn down a few times every day. Mimi thought of the noise that she made when she was young and could not help but laugh. From Mimi's smile, it was not hard to see that, although she would feel very distressed, she was also enjoying the happiness that this process brought to her. That's so good. Euphemia sighed somewhat enviously. And that's right. You seem to be called UFFI, right? Mimi thought for a while and asked somewhat uncertainly. It seemed that because she left too hurriedly, she did not remember Euphemia's name. That's right. My name is UFFI. And Euphemia, introduced herself again. However, when it came to introducing Lei Mingkai, he hesitated. Hello, my name is Kay. Ray Mingkai, who had been silent all this while took the initiative to introduce himself. Kay, is that a co-name? Mimi's pair of beautiful big eyes slightly opened, and then said as if she suddenly realized, speaking of which, that's true. Guys like you guys who always like to wear masks. There will definitely be a few code names. You guys? UFFI, who had sharp intuition, detected the words in Mimi's words. Mimi, could it be that you have seen other people like Kay? At this time, the waiter served the drinks that UFFI, Ray Mingkai, and Mimi ordered one by one. Mimi held a small spoon, stirred the coffee in the cup, and said somewhat helplessly, That's right. Ever since I became sensible around my father, there were quite a few uncles who liked to wear masks. Ever since I was young, I've already gotten tired of seeing their masks. Speaking till here, Mimi revealed an apologetic smile towards Ray Mingkai. Sorry, Kay, I'm not talking about you. Ray Mingkai shook his head magnanimously. No, don't mind it. The reason why I wear a mask is also because of some special reasons. Perhaps it is not the same as those uncles of yours. That's right. After all, they wear masks to hide their identity, and, at the same time, they can also play the role of a movie king. Mimi curled her lips, seemingly very unhappy with those masked uncles of hers. Movie king? Euphemia blinked her eyes, somewhat unable to understand this unfamiliar term to her. Oh, it means that their acting skills have reached the stage where they can deceive people. Mimi tried her best to explain to Euphemia to the extent that she could understand. Is that so? I see. Thank you very much. Euphemia thought carefully and thanked Mimi. No, you are welcome. It was just a casual chat. Suddenly, Mimi's words stopped. The next moment, Mimi suddenly turned her head and looked in another direction. Her expression also became dignified in the blink of an eye. Finally can't hold it in anymore? Mimi secretly muttered, then pulled out the bag hanging at the side and raised her hand to slap the money on the table. UFFI and K, let's call it a day. I still have something urgent. After saying that, Mimi rushed out of the coffee shop like a gust of wind. In the blink of an eye, she disappeared into the crowd. Her speed was very fast, even faster than the last time in the park. She left again. Euphemia just stretched out her hand, wanting to stop Mimi, but found that she had disappeared into the crowd. She is very mysterious. Princess Highness. Ray Mingkai's gaze was dignified. Just now, although he did not have much interaction with Mimi, he was able to observe Mimi from an outsider's point of view. The more he observed, the more Ray Mingkai was shocked. This seemingly casual and frank young girl was always shrouded in a mysterious mist, making it impossible for others to see through her. Even Zero, who caused the orange incident, did not give him such a feeling. Yes, but Himimi is not a bad person. Am I right? Arthas. Euphemia thought for a while, then picked up the black cat Arthas, who had a full meal, and looked at Ray Minkai and said. Ray Minkai was silent for a while, then nodded. UFFI, it's getting late. I think the governor should be back already. Although she was reluctant, Euphemia still knew the importance of the matter. Then let's go back. If there's a chance next time, let's go out together. Yes. Princess Highness. A few days later, Royd and the others, who worked overtime, finally completed the inspection of Lancelot. The result, after a few days of hard work, made Royd and the others unable to let go. There was no problem. No matter how Royd and Cecil searched and checked, the result was that there was no problem. Other than the cherry stone that had lost its activity, there was no problem with Lancelot. On the contrary, Lancelot's various parts were more compatible than Royd and Cecil expected. There's no problem. There's no problem. How can there be no problem? Seeing that there was no problem with this result, Royd yelled unwillingly. What he did not know was that no matter how hard the special personnel tried, they could not find a reason why the cherry stone had suddenly lost its activity. In the face of such a result, Royd, who vented his unwillingness, finally resigned to his fate and handed the completed inspection of Lancelot back to Ray Minkai. We've already missed a lot of opportunities for actual combat. Next, you'll have to work harder. Understood. Ray Minkai responded and then said, I think we can prepare more cherry stones for Lancelot. What? You still want to prepare cherry stones? No. If that's the case, the budget will be over. Royd immediately rejected Ray Minkai's suggestion. But Royd, if the strange phenomenon from before happens again, without the cherry stones, Lancelot will not be able to continue fighting. Cecil added. In an instant, Royd's face showed a struggle. In the end, Royd gritted his teeth and made a decision. All right, spare it then. But I have to contact the second prince first. Chapter 14. In a remote corner of the concession, Royd stood there helplessly, looking at the busy subordinates coming and going, sighing from time to time. He originally thought that after working overtime to adjust Lancelot's state to the best, he could participate in Cornelia's bandit suppression operation and collect more actual combat data. In the end, this was the result. Last night, a sudden explosion blew up a warehouse in a port in the southeast of the concession. From the official news, this was a flammable explosion caused by the careless operation of the staff. But in fact, it led to the entire special task force being transferred here by Cornelia to investigate the cause of the accident. In this regard, Royd was helpless and indignantly looked at the port that had been razed to the ground and was full of devastation. The Special Task Force is just an organization to develop new and cutting-edge bodies. Why are they investigating this accident that is no different from a mysterious incident? In private, Royd complained to Cecil and Ray Minkai in a frenzy. Cecil and Ray Minkai also expressed their helplessness. What they knew and understood was not as much as what Royd knew. They knew more than Royd, who received first-hand information from Cornelia 10 hours after the incident. Royd, what the hell is going on? Cecil looked at the isolation suit that had been put on and carefully looked back and forth at the site of the explosion, looking for some clues that might exist. Royd sighed, made a gesture to follow him, then turned around and led Cecil and Ray Minkai back to the transport vehicle that contained Lancelot. Look, this is the video that the governor retrieved from the port duty room after the incident. Let's talk about other things after watching it. After Cecil and Ray Minkai looked at each other, they focused their attention on the screen. After the black display flashed a few times, a gray screen with flickering brightness appeared. From the timescale displayed on the upper left of the screen, it should be a video around 1 a.m. According to the port's operating procedures, this should not be a very busy time. In the next second, Royd's words also confirmed this point. According to the results of the inquiry obtained from the staff after the incident, the port had just completed the loading and unloading of the last cargo ship before the incident. All the workers had finished their preparations and left the port one after another. So there were no casualties? Cecil asked casually. It's not that there were no casualties. It's just that they were unlucky. Look, Royd curled his lips and raised his hand to point at the screen. Under everyone's gaze, two staff members suddenly appeared from the outside of the screen. Although their expressions could not be seen clearly from their movements, they seemed to be in a hurry. Left to go? Ray Minkai asked. Yes. After the incident, the staff who returned to the port said that the two unlucky guys had indeed left their personal belongings at the port by accident, so they hurriedly returned. As a result, at the same time that Royd made the gesture of explosion, an explosion that had once happened here reappeared on the screen. From this video, there doesn't seem to be any major problems, Seher said with some hesitation. Is that so? Then, look at this video again. Royd raised his hand and pressed a button, and the screen was switched to the direction of another camera. Similarly, they could still see the video of the two staff members running to the port in a hurry. However, a few seconds later, Ray Minkai suddenly saw a black shadow pass by in front of the camera. Pause. Replay for 3 seconds. Ray Minkai shouted softly. Sure enough, Kay has found the key. Royd pressed the playback button, adjusted the time back to 10 seconds ago, and turned on the slow-motion playback function. A blurry black shadow once again appeared in front of Ray Minkai. What is this? Could it be that the explosion was caused by it? Cecil exclaimed. If Royd had not turned the slow-motion playback to the maximum, Cecil would not have been able to detect a black shadow passing by on the screen. I don't know. Royd pressed the pause button, paused the black shadow on the screen, and spread out his hands, indicating that he did not know either. Governor, do you mean that we have to find this black shadow? Ray Minkai thought for a while, then looked at Royd and asked. Yes, a perfectly good special mission had actually become a monster hunter. It's really sigh. Royd sighed with some meaning. Ray Minkai ignored Royd's sigh and asked another question. Is that all? No, there's more. Royd suddenly showed a mysterious smile. Cecil, Ray Minkai, please don't blink. The next video, other than the governor and a few people who know about it, only me and the two of you who are about to watch the video know about it. Is there really no problem? Cecil exclaimed. No. There's no problem. After all, if a battle really happens, Kay and Cecil, you won't be able to escape. Royd waved his hand, and after pressing the password on the console according to the sequence, another new image appeared in front of Ray Minkai and Cecil. This is a nightmare. Cecil's eyes widened slightly as he looked at the huge body that almost occupied the entire screen. On the screen, a huge body that was almost completely covered by mosaic had its back facing the camera, and it seemed to be in a battle with something. The only thing that could be seen clearly was that the back of this huge body did not have the unique cockpit of a nightmare. No, it's not a nightmare. Ray Minkai denied Cecil's words and carefully examined the huge body that appeared on the screen. This isn't the nightmare that we know. Its height and its shape are not something that can be designed with our usual design ideas, right? Royd, clap, 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 clap. Royd clapped his hands in admiration. Congratulations, you're right. You're indeed a top student of the Royal Academy. Cecil, you've embarrassed yourself this time. Thank goodness you've been with me for so long. I'm really sorry. Cecil quickly bowed and apologized. No, you don't have to. In fact, when I saw this body, I was similar to you, Cecil. As Royd spoke, he put on a serious face. Do you know? Based on the size shown on the screen, the result is that this mysterious and huge body is at least 19 meters tall. 19 meters? How is that possible? According to our energy system, it is impossible to provide a stable output of energy for a body of this height. Cecil denied again. Yes, according to our current nightmare design and manufacturing ideas, it is indeed impossible to create such a huge body. Royd nodded and agreed with Cecil's denial. However, he said again, but the body in this video did exist. Don't you want to know what caused the explosion at the port? This is the reason. Royd raised his hand and tapped on the screen as he said the truth word by word. Royd, you mean the explosion was caused by the battle between this huge body and the shadow? Royd shook his head and did not deny Raymond Kai's doubts, but he did not confirm it either. This is what we have to investigate. Yes, this was the task entrusted by the new governor, Cornelia. In fact, Lloyd knew that he might have been too eager, causing Cornelia, who didn't think highly of the special agent, to casually give him this mission and send the special agent away so that he wouldn't keep loitering in front of her. Royd, is there no clearer video? Ray Minkai, who carefully observed the video, suddenly asked. No, that's all. It seems that because of some interference, the cameras in the entire port almost lost their function. You have to know that in this port, there are hundreds of cameras of various sizes. Royd took a few steps back, leaned against the wall, and continued. It's already very difficult to capture the shadow and the mysterious body. No matter how much they pondered about the existence of the shadow and the huge body, the investigation still needed to be carried out. However, on the second day of the investigation, an urgent order broke the busy scene and completely ignited Royd's passion. Okay, the mission is here. The special mission can finally participate in actual combat. Lancelot can appear again. What mission? Ray Minkai, who was adjusting Lancelot, jumped down from the open cockpit and landed in front of Royd. Kidnapping. There was a kidnapping at the Conference Center Hotel in Estuary Lake. The kidnappers claimed to be the Neon Liberation Front. This is the hostage video. Cecil, who rushed over from the side, raised his hand and handed the tablet to Ray Minkai. The next moment, Ray Minkai's pupils shrank. UFFI. Although the camera only panned across the crowd, Ray Minkai, with his amazing eyesight, could still clearly see the beautiful pink hair in the crowd and the familiar face even with glasses as a cover. She was the third princess, Euphemia Libritania. Chapter 15. He couldn't help but sigh. While Royd was lamenting the fact that he shouldn't be in charge of the port investigation, the heavens suddenly opened another door. Faced with the sudden hostage kidnapping, Royd excitedly shouted that Lancelot finally had a chance to appear, but Cecil couldn't help but pour cold water on him. Because in the order, there was no mention of the special mission giving up on the investigation at hand and fully participating in the hostage kidnapping. TSK, you still want to continue such a troublesome mission? Royd's mouth twitched as he disdainfully threw the investigation to someone else. He then pulled Cecil and Ray Minkai onto the transport vehicle and drove towards Estuary Lake. After about an hour of travel, the transport vehicle finally arrived at Estuary Lake with Royd driving at full speed and passed through the checkpoint Cornelia set up on the road leading to Estuary Lake. News of the special mission's arrival was also sent back to Cornelia's mothership. Governor, the special mission you specially named has arrived. I've already arranged for them to be stationed at the right wing of the headquarters. Adjutant Andreas Dalton slightly bowed to Cornelia. Cornelia nodded and asked, Dalton, what about you? What's the result of your investigation? The middle-aged man with a serious expression lowered his head and respectfully said, Yes, Governor. According to our investigation, the special missions members have no major problems. There are only two things that caught the governor's attention. The first is the person in charge of the special mission, Roy Sprint. Not only is he a classmate of the second prince, Schnetzel EI Britannia, but he is also a researcher under the second prince. Also, Roy Sprint seems to have some connections with the emperor. Cornelia slightly nodded and didn't make any comments. Obviously, she wasn't interested in Roy Sprint's existence. As an adjutant who had been by Cornelia's side for many years, Dalton naturally knew what Cornelia was thinking. Therefore, he didn't waste any more words. The second one is the nameless knight who wears a mask all day. After investigation, we found out that nearly a month ago, this unnamed knight was suddenly brought back by Royd and became the world's only seventh-generation nightmare Lancelot Knight. Hearing this, Cornelia asked, That's all? Dalton, the adjutant, who had maintained a serious expression from the beginning to the end, shook his head slightly. No, Governor. This was only the information on the surface. After some hard work, our intelligence personnel discovered that this unknown knight, who Royd called was actually found in the Royal Knight Academy. Oh, Royal Knight Academy? Was it Imperial Father who ordered the establishment of the Academy on a whim 2 years ago? Interesting. Is there more? Cornelia's eyes gradually lit up with interest. Unfortunately, the adjutant shook his head and bowed even lower. I'm very sorry, Governor. Our intelligence personnel have reached the limit of their investigation. It seems that someone is secretly obstructing our investigation. Obstructing? When Cornelia heard this, her eyes flashed with a cold light. Yes, during the investigation of the Royal Knight Academy, our intelligence personnel had their identities exposed more than once and were secretly threatened. In order to protect the safety of our intelligence personnel, after much consideration, I finally gave the order to stop the investigation. The loyal adjutant fearfully apologized to Cornelia. Unable to complete the governor's order, we deserve to die. Please punish us. Cornelia shook her head and stood up from the main seat. She walked in front of the adjutant and patted his shoulder, gently saying, Dalton, raise your head. No matter if it's you or the intelligence personnel, you've all done very well. It seems that Royd and Imperial Father are keeping a secret that they don't want others to know. At this point, Cornelia chuckled. Fine, let's put aside the special mission. What's the situation with the terrorists? Yes, they're still in a deadlock. Before we arrived, we've already tried to rescue them from the air and underwater, but without exception, they all failed. The advisor, standing beside Dalton, reported to Cornelia. They all failed? Oomph. It seems that the terrorists came prepared. Cornelia's face became more and more fierce, but more and more worried. Seeing this, the advisor couldn't help but take a deep breath and told her the final rescue plan. From the current situation, the only feasible rescue plan is to use the underground supply tunnel that extends to the Conference Center Hotel and destroy the foundation, causing the hotel to sink into the water. Finally, while the terrorists are in chaos, our army can send special forces into the hotel to rescue the hostages. The advisor paused and continued. Because this supply tunnel was built to transport supplies, there's enough space for Nightmare to pass through. According to past records, the terrorists who kidnapped the hostages shouldn't have too many heavy weapons against Nightmare. Therefore, the probability of rescuing the hostages is very high. Cornelia, who was worried that Euphemia's identity would be exposed, didn't think too much about this battle plan. After all, before this, the outstanding advisor group had already tried various methods, and in the end, this was the only option. Royd, can you talk to the governor? Lei Mingkai, who watched the 3 Sunderland planes being hoisted into the supply channel leading to the conference center one after another, turned his head and asked Roy. Yes, I can, but I've already sent in the request. It's just that the governor doesn't seem to want to allow Lancelot to join the battle. Royd was also helpless. Since they could use an emergency order to call them here, they shouldn't be left hanging. In the end, they could only stare at the conference center from afar. Let's try again. I'm afraid this attack will fail. Rei Mingkai's face gradually turned serious. Fail? It shouldn't be, right? According to the terrorist weapons, they don't seem to have too many heavy weapons against Nightmare. Although Sunderland isn't as good as Lancelot, but before Royd could finish his sentence, a roar suddenly exploded from the supply tunnel. Immediately after, a gust of wind surged out from the tunnel that Sunderland used to enter the attack tunnel without any warning, causing the vehicles parked at the side to sway back and forth. Royd was taken aback. He hurriedly asked Cecil to investigate what had happened. The mothership sent news. It's a linear cannon. It seems to be a cannon modified from Glasgow. The 3 Sunderland we sent were all destroyed in an instant. Cecil was shocked and quickly reported the information from the mothership. Linear cannon? The terrorists actually have this thing. This is bad. Even if there are more Sunderland attacking together, it's just a matter of one cannon. As he spoke, Royd's mouth gradually rose. He turned to look at Rei Mingkai and said confidently, "Kay, you're about to appear." Ray Minkai shook his head. "Royd, can you talk to Governor Cornelia? If this drags on, the existence of the third princess will be discovered by the terrorists." Although Royd knew from Ray Minkai's tone that this wasn't a joke, he still felt that he had to confirm with Cornelia. However, how to confirm was Royd's problem. "Governor, Special Envoy is calling. Request direct communication with Governor." Just when Cornelia was at her wit's end, Royd's call came in time. "Royd, what do you want?" Cornelia's gaze was very sharp, as if in the next moment, if Royd didn't give a satisfactory answer, Cornelia would order the Special Envoy to be excluded from this operation. "No, Governor. This time, the main character is not me. The one who wants to communicate with Governor is him, Knight K." After Royd bowed slightly to Cornelia, he exited the screen and left the space to the man in a white pilot suit with a silver mask. "Nameless Knight K." Cornelia instantly recognized his identity. "Yes, Governor. I'm the special test pilot Knight K." Ray Minkai said respectfully while performing a knight salute. "Say it. I don't have much time now." Cornelia suppressed the anxiety in her heart to keep herself calm. "Your Highness, please let me take on the assault mission." Ray Minkai made his request. "Why?" Cornelia stood up and stared at Ray Minkai. If it weren't for the screen, Cornelia even wanted to take off the silver mask on Ray Minkai's face and directly see his heart through his eyes. "UFFI." Ray Minkai slowly said a name. As soon as the name came out, Cornelia was shocked. Her heroic face became ferocious, and her voice became low and hoarse. How do you know?" "Governor, why ask when you already know?" Ray Minkai said flatly. Cornelia clenched her fists tightly. Just as she was about to close her eyes and think about whether she could trust this nameless knight, a sudden change occurred. "Governor, the situation has changed." Under the staff officer's exclamation, several figures appeared on the top floor of the hotel. There were several terrorists armed with firearms and a hostage whose hands were tied. The next second, the hostage who kept begging for mercy was kicked off the top floor by the ruthless terrorist. The hostage was dead. Then, the terrorist leader also issued a death threat. "Governor, Lancelot and I are on standby." Cornelia raised her hand to stop Ray Minkai's words. "Knight K, I allow you to attack, but you must guarantee that the third princess, Euphemia Libritania, will be rescued in one piece." "Yes, in the name of Knight." Chapter 16. After ending the communication, Royd looked at Ray Minkai and said, "I didn't expect Her Royal Highness to be kidnapped." "Kay, how did you find out?" Ray Minkai raised his hand to put on the headset and said calmly, "Because Her Royal Highness is too dazzling, I can find her in the crowd." Oh, when Royd heard this, he exclaimed, "Too dazzling? TSK, TSK. I say, Kay, your luck with women doesn't seem to be that simple." "Interesting, interesting." Ray Minkai ignored Royd, who was still mocking him, and turned to look at Cecil. "Miss Cecil, Lancelot, prepare to attack." "Understood." The equipment used this time is a handheld rifle, variable varies. Due to the powerful impact ammunition used, please try to avoid being affected by the explosion when shooting. Cecil familiarly made the final preparations for Lancelot's attack, while telling Ray Minkai the characteristics of the new equipment. But for the next action, Ray Minkai had his own opinions. "Miss Cecil, did you bring the MSV radiation vibration sword?" "Yes, but it doesn't seem to be necessary, right?" Before Cecil answered, Royd spoke first. "No, it can be used. I can use it." Ray Minkai didn't voice his thoughts out loud. Moreover, when Lancelot was ready and was sent to the supply channel, the situation changed again. Zero, the man that Cornelia had been looking for since she came to District 11, appeared. Because of his appearance, Lancelot was also ordered to suspend the attack and wait for orders. "Oh, why are they all together?" F*CK, looks like your idea of saving the damsel in distress will have to be postponed, Lloyd said mockingly as he looked toward the bridge. No, it is impossible for the governor to trust Zero. Moreover, the governor probably wants to catch Zero and the terrorists in one fell swoop. Lei Mingkai's expression did not change. He remained calm and waited for the order to attack. Really? There seemed to be a result. The governor seems to have reached an agreement with Zero. They're on the bridge, Royd muttered before he was startled by the sudden call. The governor requests to speak to you alone. Understood. Lei Mingkai nodded and opened the communication channel. Night K. Now you have one more task. While ensuring the safety of the third princess, Euphemia Libertania, kill Zero and bring his head back to me. On the screen, Cornelia's face was fierce and murderous. Lei Mingkai clenched his right fist and knocked on his heart. Yes, Your Highness. The time of the attack was set to be 3 minutes after Zero entered the hotel. 3 minutes was just the blink of an eye. Just as Lei Mingkai adjusted his condition to the most perfect state, the order to attack was issued. Lancelot, it's time to attack. Understood. Just as Lei Mingkai's voice faded, Lancelot's high-speed, driving wheels exploded. In the blink of an eye, Lancelot had dashed 100 meters away, rushing into the depths of the supply channel at lightning speed. The high-speed Lancelot was quickly caught by the enemy, hiding in the supply channel. In the next second, the linear cannon, which had caused Sunderland to lose his life, which was also the super electromagnetic grenade heavy artillery that the terrorists were talking about, quickly locked on a Lancelot. The ultra-high voltage filled the thick barrel of the cannon. As long as the voltage reached a critical point, the highly destructive shell would be fired and annihilate all the enemies in one fell swoop. It's coming. The moment the depth of the channel lit up with electric light, Lei Mingkai's hair immediately stood up. Boom! The electric light exploded in the depth of the channel. Lei Mingkai's hands pulled back at the same time. The high-speed Lancelot immediately decelerated and reversed the high-speed driving wheels, retreating at the highest speed possible. Then, in the instant that the bullets from the grenade cannon whistled through the air, Lei Mingkai's hands alternately pushed and pulled. Under his movements, Lancelot constantly made sharp turns to the left, right, forward, backward, and even jump on the spot and other emergency maneuvers to avoid the large number of bullets that almost sealed the road. Boom, boom, boom. As the bullets smashed into the ground and exploded violently on the walls, Lancelot either flipped, jumped, rushed to the top of the tunnel, or drifted on the screen wall. Like a ghost, he ignored the explosions and charged toward the enemy at full speed. Boom! Another series of violent explosions rang out. However, it still couldn't stop Lancelot's advance. In the smoke, Lancelot raised his rifle. The distance is too short now. You will be affected by the explosion. From the data feedback, Cecil saw Lancelot raising his gun and preparing to shoot and immediately shouted, "No, there's not enough time. We must open the channel as soon as possible." What? The urgency in Lei Mingkai's tone made Cecil stunned, but he couldn't understand why Lei Mingkai suddenly became so anxious. There was no other reason. It was because the memory fragments that had been silent since the Shinjuku incident suddenly appeared at this critical moment. In the haze, Lei Mingkai saw Euphemia's solemn words and resolute expression as she stood up from the crowd, squatting on the ground. She stood up bravely for the girl who had almost been brutally beaten by the terrorists. This scene made Lei Mingkai's heart suddenly tighten. What would happen after the terrorists who were threatening Cornelia with hostages learned about Euphemia's identity? There was no need for Lei Mingkai to think about it. He could already guess. There's not enough time. Lightning lit up in front of his eyes again, and Lei Mingkai decisively pressed the trigger. Boom! The moment the bullet was fired, the roar was endless. At the same time, the enemy, in the moment of life and death, also fired with all their might. The strong collided. In the end, the enemy's all-out shooting was defeated by the new weapon Lancelot was equipped with this time. The moment the bullet fired from the rifle broke through the barrier of the grenade and sank into the thick barrel, an earth-shattering explosion sounded. While the incomparably violent power blew up the supply channel in the blink of an eye, it also blew up a huge splash of water dozens of meters high on the surface of the water. Ooh! Amidst the splash, Lancelot's figure broke out of the water. After that, Lancelot swung his right hand forward, and the rifle that had contributed to killing the enemy was casually discarded on the bridge. This scene drove Royd, who was behind him, crazy. That's new equipment. How can this bastard throw it on the ground like trash? Ray Minkai, who was fully focused on the conference center hotel, did not pay attention to Royd's wailing. Lancelot stretched his right hand behind his back, and the MSV radiation vibration sword was in his hand. Then Lancelot swung his left hand, and the hook on his forearm immediately shot out. In the blink of an eye, it broke through the glass of the building and firmly hooked onto the hotel wall. As the rope of the hook quickly retracted, Lancelot slammed into the hotel with the sound of the wind. Boom! Under everyone's watchful eyes, Ray Minkai drove Lancelot directly into the hotel in a rude and unreasonable manner. What? He didn't attack according to the plan? Cornelia, who was standing in the cockpit of the exclusive Gloucester, clenched her right fist, but did not make things difficult for him. This was because she knew that Lancelot's position of attack happened to be around the room where the hostages were. From the beginning, Ray Minkai had already planned for this. Otherwise, in a hurry, he would not have been able to make such a move. If UFFI is hurt, I will not forgive you. Knight K. Although Cornelia understood, Ray Minkai's violation of the battle plan was a fact. In the billowing smoke, the terrorist who was shocked by Lancelot's fierce attack did not even have the chance to stand up before he was knocked down by a figure that rushed out of the smoke. Gotcha! Ray Minkai picked up a submachine gun from the side of the terrorist who was soaked in blood. He casually pulled the bolt, and after confirming that there were no bullets, he kicked open the door and fired. Da-da-da-da-da! The hostages, who had not yet reacted to Lancelot's attack, were frightened by the sudden gunshots and screamed on the ground. In the flash of gunpowder, screams, the terrorists fell to the ground one after another. Quiet. After Ray Minkai confirmed that there were no more enemies around, he shouted loudly, UFFI, Euphemia Britannia. Is Her Royal Highness the Third Princess here? Ray Minkai saw that the hostages had barely calmed down and asked again, I know you. You're a special knight, K. Her Royal Highness has just been taken away by terrorists. Go and save her. A young woman with short brown hair stood up from the crowd and looked at Ray Minkai and said, You should be UFFI, the guard of Her Royal Highness, the Third Princess. Don't you feel that you have failed in your duty? Take it. Now you cover the hostages' retreat. Her Royal Highness, let me save her. Although Ray Minkai knew that the memory fragment that suddenly appeared would not be wrong, but after seeing this female guard who had failed in her duty, his heart was still filled with anger. The female guard also knew that she had failed in her duty. After silently taking the submachine gun from Ray Minkai's hands, she began to organize the evacuation of the hostages. White Cat. Ray Minkai quickly left the warehouse and shouted in a low voice, Cherrystone. Deal. While running, two terrorists suddenly appeared on the other side of the aisle. Damn you Britannians. Go to hell. They quickly raised the submachine gun in their hands and fired at Ray Minkai. Da-da-da-da. In the whistling rain of bullets, Ray Minkai rolled on the ground and quickly hid behind the display cabinet on the other side of the aisle. That girl is in the third room on the left after 30 meters. She seems to be safe right now. The White Cat sat beside Ray Minkai and lazily said, Understood. Ka-ka-ka-ka. In the instant that the enemy ran out of ammunition, Ray Minkai saw the opportunity and suddenly rushed out from behind the display cabinet and fired 2 shots at the terrorists who did not react in time. Pooh! Pooh! The terrorists who were cursing just now fell to the ground with their eyes wide open. Chapter 17. The sound of footsteps could be heard from the corridor. Behind the sound of footsteps, there were always waves of curses and gunshots. But in this rain of bullets that was enough to drown the corridor, there was a white, blurry little figure that wantonly shuttled back and forth. Chop! The little figure flashed past. In an instant, without attracting anyone's attention, two black shadows soared into the sky. And the enemy, who was holding a submachine gun and blocking the corridor with a barrage of bullets, preventing Ray Minkai from breaking through the line of defense, also rolled to the ground along with the two black shadows. With a plop, they fell to the ground. What? The two terrorists at the back didn't seem to have reacted. They just stared blankly at their companions, who suddenly fell to the ground silently, until the two black shadows rolling on the ground slowly stopped at their feet. They were shocked to find that their companions' heads had already fallen to the ground. How was this possible? Amidst the shock, the white shadow reappeared. Finally realizing what had happened, the terrorists immediately raised their guns and madly shot at the white shadow. However, they did not hit the white shadow. Instead, they were shot to the ground by Ray Minkai, who saw the opportunity to shoot them twice in a row. After turning the corner, it's the room where the girl you're looking for is. The mysterious white cat's figure gently landed on the top of the display cabinet at the side of the corridor and said to Ray Minkai. Ray Minkai squatted beside the terrorist's corpse and searched a few times. After taking out 2 grenades from it, he nodded. I thought you wanted to use your strength, but in the end, you let me do it. It really surprised me. The mysterious white cat took a step forward, gracefully stepping on the top of the display cabinet, and said indifferently, Do you want me to use it? From the looks of it, it's all the same. After Ray Minkai reloaded the submachine gun in his hand with a new magazine, he said as he pulled the bolt, Humph! Without memories, it's indeed the same as before. The white cat sneered and jumped down from the display case, landing on the floor that was covered in blood. The strange thing was that the white cat's pure white fur was not contaminated by the stench of blood. It was as if there was a mysterious force that separated it from the pool of blood. Hurry up! The battle just now has already alerted those fanatical terrorists. The mysterious white cat raised its head and glanced at Ray Minkai before turning around and disappearing around the corner. Then there was a burst of gunfire and sparks. The corner of the corridor was filled with a hail of bullets. Ray Minkai stepped forward with his back against the wall, silently listening to the volume of the gunshots. When the gunshots gradually stopped, he pulled out the pins of the 2 grenades in his hands and threw them deep into the corridor. Grenade! After a series of exclamations, the sound of 2 grenades exploding instantly drowned out the corridor. Ray Minkai lowered his body and rolled to the middle of the corridor. He quickly raised the submachine gun in his hand and continuously fired into the corridor. Even with the thick smoke from the explosion, it could not stop Ray Minkai from killing the enemy. Moreover, in the thick smoke, the mysterious white cat was like a ghost, flashing its sharp claws at the enemy. Not long after, with the cooperation of Ray Minkai and the mysterious white cat, the last obstacle was finally cleared. It's here, the mysterious white cat said as it squatted in front of the door and looked at Ray Minkai, who was reloading. Ray Minkai nodded, but did not immediately turn the door lock. After a moment of silence, Ray Minkai raised his leg and kicked the door, then immediately returned to his original position. Sure enough, the moment the door was kicked open by Ray Minkai, a burst of gunfire more violent than the previous battle erupted from the room. Not to mention other things, just by looking at the wall opposite the door that was rapidly increasing the number of bullet holes, one could tell that the people hiding in the room were already prepared. Stop! In less than a minute, a rather majestic voice sounded from the room. Britannians over there, listen up, put down your weapons, and surrender. Otherwise, the safety of the 3rd Princess Euphemia Libertania will not be guaranteed. TSK. Ray Minkai's eyes flashed with a cold light. Then he threw the submachine gun in his hand into the open door. Clang! Following the sound of the submachine gun falling to the ground, Ray Minkai, with his hands raised, slowly appeared in front of the terrorist. Humph! Was he alone? How brave! After seeing Ray Minkai appear alone, a middle-aged man with a full beard crab-like hairstyle, and wearing an old-fashioned neon military uniform, had a look of admiration in his eyes. Regardless of the enemy's force field, the middle-aged man who had a martial spirit was indeed moved by Rei Minkai's bravery. Although I admire your bravery, Britannians, your timing is not right. The middle-aged man raised his right hand and smiled. Attack! K. Quickly run. Upon seeing the middle-aged man giving the order to kill Rei Minkai, Euphemia, who was being held hostage by a soldier, immediately shouted. Da-da-da-da. Gunshots sounded again. However, in the bullet screen, no one was able to see the blood splattering out from the bullet holes, and even Rei Minkai's figure disappeared. What's going on? Rei Minkai, who suddenly disappeared, made the middle-aged man stare blankly for a moment. In the next moment, the middle-aged man was surprised to find that he seemed to have risen into the air and then rotated and fell to the ground. Until the moment before his eyes fell into darkness, he discovered that his body was still in the same place. Lieutenant Colonel! Amidst the exclamations, a white figure shuttled through the many terrorists, and bursts of blood mist exploded one after another. Who is it? Shoot! Shoot! Unable to see clearly and unable to capture the enemy, the terrorists who had lost their leader panicked. Plop! Plop! In the blink of an eye, the situation was reversed in an instant. The terrorists who were holding Euphemia hostage just now were all down in a short moment. Only a young man wearing a white pilot's uniform with a silver mask on his face and the third princess who was being protected behind him were left. Wonderful! Who are you? After Rei Minkai suddenly burst out and killed the enemy in an extremely strange way and successfully took back Euphemia, a figure wearing a black helmet and a black cloak slowly walked out from the shadows of the room with a pistol. Zero. Rei Minkai's eyes were full of murderous intent, and his hanging right hand was slowly dripping drops of dark red blood to the ground. In that critical moment, Rei Minkai finally chose to use the power of the mysterious white cat. Therefore, under the power enhancement of the mysterious white cat, Rei Minkai was able to transform into a ghost and reverse the situation in an extremely strange way in a short time and save Euphemia. Don't move. Although your performance just now was amazing, no matter how powerful you are, there will be a corresponding price. Masked Knight, if you still want to save the third princess, then stay there obediently. He had to admit, it was only the first time he used his power in front of others, but Zero had already seen through Rei Minkai's details at a glance. This made Rei Minkai wary of Zero. Kai, he's right. With your current body, you won't be able to withstand the power for too long. The white cat's voice sounded in Rei Minkai's ears. Rei Minkai's eyes narrowed slightly, and he shielded Euphemia, who wanted to say something behind him. Still want to kill me? Masked Knight. See, this is the button that can blow this hotel to the sky. If you want to kill me, then come at me. Zero's voice was filled with an unhurried power, causing Rei Minkai to be extremely fearful. Yes, just as Zero said, now Rei Minkai felt that the power that allowed him to reverse the situation in an instant seemed to have reached the point of exhaustion. If he delayed any longer, he was afraid that even Euphemia would not be able to be protected. Making a choice, Rei Minkai lifted his foot and kicked a corpse on the ground in the direction of Zero. Immediately after, Rei Minkai turned around and hugged Euphemia. While apologizing, he quickly rushed out of the room. Your Highness, I'm sorry. Now, please bear with me for a while. Rei Minkai hugged Euphemia and rushed out of the room. Just a few steps later, a sudden vibration came from the bottom of the hotel. Zero detonated the bomb. UFFI, hold on tight. Rei Minkai clenched his teeth, no longer caring that his power had reached its limit, and rushed toward Lancelot's location with all his strength. K, your eyes. Running at full speed, Euphemia, who was in Rei Minkai's arms, looked in shock at the tears of blood flowing from under the mask. Rei Minkai did not answer, only clenched his teeth, lowered his head, and slammed open the door, rushing in front of Lancelot. Boom! The fragile floor was simply unable to withstand that violent explosion, and in an instant, it turned into countless fragments and shot out in all directions. Fortunately, Ray Minkai had already brought Euphemia and sat in Lancelot's cockpit, and successfully activated Lancelot and the energy light shield on Lancelot's arm. But under the attack of the fragments, Lancelot, who had the energy light shield raised, retreated at full speed. Until the moment when he was about to leave the hotel, he jumped back with all his strength and jumped from the hotel into the air. UFFI, hold on tight. Although Lancelot had already escaped the danger of being crushed by the hotel, Lancelot was currently 100 meters high in the air. If he did not take action in time, even if Lancelot was not broken, Ray Minkai and Euphemia, who were sitting in the cockpit, would also suffer from the huge impact caused by falling to the ground. At the critical moment, under the control of Ray Minkai, Lancelot raised his left hand and shot out a claw towards the top of the hotel. The moment the claw was fixed on the top of the hotel, Lancelot's body immediately stopped falling and quickly flew towards the top of the hotel. However, that was only relatively speaking. After all, the hotel itself was in a situation where it quickly fell into the lake because of the explosion of the bomb that Zero had placed at the bottom. But even so, it was enough to let Lancelot escape the danger of falling. Rumble. In the smoke and dust, the collapse of the hotel gradually came to an end. And on the platform at the top of the hotel that survived, Lancelot stood there safe and sound. This made everyone who was frightened by the sudden explosion secretly breathe a sigh of relief. Kay, are you okay? Kay. When the dust was almost settled, a panicked voice sounded in Lancelot's cockpit. What happened? Lancelot. As soon as Cecil turned on the internal camera of Lancelot's cockpit, he was immediately frightened by Ray Minkai's pale face and bleeding from his 5 orifices. Kay, wake up! The third princess panicked and sounded throughout the communication channel. Chapter 18. Governor, Royal sister. Just an hour. Just let me go to the hospital. On the night of the kidnapping incident, Euphemia, who had just returned to the governor's mansion, had yet to catch her breath when she requested to go to the hospital with Cornelia. The result was obvious. Before the effects of the kidnapping incident were completely quelled, Cornelia could not and did not dare to let Euphemia leave the governor's mansion. In fact, while Cornelia was relieved that all the kidnappers had died, it also brought about a new problem. The murderer, Zero, who had killed the third Prince Clovis, had used the influence of the kidnapping incident to publicly announce the establishment of an illegal organization called the Black Knight Order. If Cornelia had not been concerned about Euphemia's safety after witnessing all of this, she would have definitely ordered Zero's group to be wiped out immediately. With countless thoughts flashing through her mind, Cornelia stopped and turned to look at her sister, whose face was full of anxiety. She sighed and said, UFFI, I know you're very worried about that night, but didn't the doctor already come to a conclusion? Although it looks very frightening from the outside, it's only an injury sustained in an intense battle. As she spoke, Cornelia stepped forward and raised her hand to caress Euphemia's face. She said softly, UFFI, what you should do now is to adjust your state of mind, rest well, and then choose a suitable time to visit that person, Night K. Otherwise, his efforts to save you from the hands of the terrorists would have been in vain. Do you understand? Seeing Cornelia's firm attitude, Euphemia finally bit her lips and nodded to listen to Cornelia's words. She returned to her room to rest under the guidance of a maid who had rushed over from Winson. Seeing Euphemia return to her room under the guidance of numerous maids, Cornelia sighed softly. As her sister, Cornelia knew that if Euphemia continued to persist, she was afraid that she would also show signs of loosening up and allow Euphemia to go to the hospital to visit the masked knight. Dalton, what's the result of the investigation of the Conference Center Hotel? After stabilizing her mind, Cornelia quickly put her mind back to business. Yes, according to the results of the investigation from the corpses unearthed from the ruins, The terrorists were indeed killed by Knight K's sword, as the deputy governor said. Sword? How is that possible? Although our Britannia Empire's soldiers are outstanding, our enemies are terrorists who were able to persevere for so many years in such an overwhelming disadvantage. How could such well-trained soldiers be killed by a sword? Obviously, Cornelia did not completely believe her sister's words. She knew that Euphemia was hiding something from her. Even if these things would not negatively affect Euphemia, or even her, Cornelia, Euphemia's concealment did make Cornelia feel anxious. Continue to clear the ruins. In addition, inform the publicity department to do necessary reports on this incident. Yes, Governor. Standing in the aisle, Cornelia tilted her head and looked at the moon hanging high in the night sky outside the window. She sighed and said, "Perhaps there will be a storm." At the same time, in a room in the Student Union office building of Ashford College. Damn it. Following a curse, a black helmet was thrown onto the bed. It rolled until it hit an exquisite body before it stopped. What happened? Did someone attack you? With the usual cold expression, the woman lying on the bed hugging a pillow slightly raised her head and looked at the young man with an exasperated expression. What was that? What was that power? The young man took a few steps forward, grabbed the girl's shoulder, and asked quickly, "Power?" As her long green hair flew, the girl's expression became more and more confused. "Power? Don't you already know?" "No, that's definitely not Gia's power." "CC, before you formed a contract with me, did you also have a contractor similar to me?" Suddenly, the young man thought of a possibility. The green-haired girl in front of him had an immortal body. In other words, she was not as simple as she looked on the surface. She was actually an existence that had lived for at least a few hundred years. Therefore, the young man thought that there must have been other people like him who had made a contract with C in the past few hundred years. "Calm down." The green-haired girl, CC, grabbed the young man's hands and coldly shouted, "It was just an accident. How could make you like this? Is the oath you swore so simple that it can't withstand a single blow?" With C's cold shout, the young man finally regained his rationality. He let go of C's shoulder, took a few steps back, and fell onto the sofa. He raised his hand to cover his face and muttered, "That was hell. A second ago I was still alive, and the next second my head was separated from my body. Are you afraid just like that? Have you forgotten? Before this, how many people have you killed with your own hands? How many people have committed suicide fanatically because of your order? You, who have nothing but bones behind you, are afraid of this?" Leluxiu. C sat up from a bed, looked at the depressed young man, and said word by word, Yes, I have nothing but bones behind me." The young man named Leluxiu snorted coldly, looked up at CC, and said with a burning gaze, "I should thank you, CC, but you haven't answered my previous question. C, do you have another contractor like me?" C was silent. The two of them looked at each other without any emotion. They were just looking at each other. Gradually, C subconsciously avoided Leluxiu's gaze. When the moonlight passed through the thin curtain and scattered on the ground, C's voice sounded faintly. "Yes, but he doesn't have as much power as you said." As expected, Leluxiu's gaze gradually sharpened. C's confession made Leluxiu feel a sense of urgency. The girl in front of him was no doubt his contractor, and also the source of Gias, which he relied heavily on now. If C felt that he didn't have the ability to fulfill her wish, it meant that Gias would be taken back. "CC, what's his name?" Leluxiu's voice was calm. However, C sensed a trace of murderous intent in it. "Don't worry, Leluxiu, that child won't be a hindrance to you or me." C avoided Leluxiu's gaze again and said with a calm but slightly pitiful voice, "That child is just a poor child that I dragged into hell." "Hell?" Leluxiu snorted coldly when he heard the word. "Hell? Very well. If that's the case, I'll put him aside. CC, if he affects my plan, I'll kill him. C fell silent. She didn't know how to respond to Leluxiu. Whether it was Leluxiu or the poor child, C couldn't find a solution in a short time. Come to think of it, C, you immortal witch. Have you really never seen a power other than Geas? C shook her head and gave an affirmative answer to Leluxiu's question. No, I haven't. Although I can't remember how many years I've lived, I'm sure that Geas is the only supernatural power in this world. Is that so? I see. This time, Leluxiu believed C's words. He turned around and opened the curtains, gazing in the direction of the river, and muttered, "It seems that there's another power in this world that we don't know about that's disturbing the world. Are you afraid? Leluxiu, you know, when humans face the unknown, they'll always feel fear." C turned to look at Leluxiu's back. Leluxiu put down the curtains and turned around. With his back to the moonlight, he looked at C with an unwavering expression. Fear? Yes. Right now, I'm very afraid. However, I'm looking forward to this unknown power disrupting the world as soon as possible. Because only then can I realize my dream in the shortest time possible to destroy Britannia. A few days later, Cornelia, who had finally finished dealing with the aftermath of the kidnapping, had yet to catch her breath when she was disturbed by the sudden arrival of Euphemia. Cornelia glanced at the captain of the guards, Gilbert, who had a helpless expression. She shook her head slightly and motioned for the others to leave the room. UFFI, have you rested well these past few days? Cornelia smiled. Royal sister, I've rested enough. Can I go to the hospital for a visit now? You know, this is also one of the duties of the deputy governor. After a few days, Euphemia actually used the title of deputy governor in an attempt to obtain permission to go to the hospital. This change made Cornelia not know whether to laugh or cry. However, Cornelia finally agreed to Euphemia's request. However, before letting Euphemia go to the hospital, Cornelia gave a warrant to Euphemia and asked her to bring it to Mecha. Governor, is it really okay to do this? After Euphemia left the governor's mansion, Adjutant Dalton's face showed a hint of hesitation. Problem? What's the problem? To District 11, although I, Cornelia Li Britannia, am the new governor, to the nobles who control this land, I'm just a passerby. Cornelia stood in front of the window and watched as the convoy carrying Euphemia moved further and further away. She said in a sonorous voice, with a strong voice, "This is undoubtedly the truth." However, they had forgotten one thing. Although I, Cornelia, will not be the governor of District 11 for long, my sister, Euphemia Li Britannia, will be the governor of District 11. At this point, Cornelia turned to look at her right-hand man, Dalton, and asked in a low voice, "Under such circumstances, should I personally clean up this rotten land before handing it over to the third princess, Euphemia?" Cornelia's frankness shocked Dalton. He did not expect that from the beginning. Cornelia did not care about the position of governor of District 11. Instead, she decided to clean it up and hand it over to her sister. "Yes, Your Highness, as you wish." You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.